So your full-time gig is optometry, eh?
Optometrist.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro.
Fuck, I
So
wouldn't have expected that, eh?
nah, no one does, eh? But to be fair, who would expect that? There's like 400 in New Zealand, so not every day you run into one. So most, what is it? When Specsavers look at going into a city, they want 17 or 19,000 people.
Yeah.
Sorry, town. Um, so there's for one Specsavers. So there might only be one or two in a 20,000 person town. So you know.
Fuck. So you work at Specsavers, is it? Or
No, I did do a stint with them when I graduated. Got sucked into the old graduate program. It was all served its purpose. It got me going from doing an exam in about at uni. What would we do? We take about an hour 20. So slow, under so much pressure, just so much pressure that you couldn't think. You just couldn't
mm,
think laterally. Everything was very stepwise, and I suppose that's part of learning something. But yeah, first day I rocked in there, and they were like, "Oh, yep, try to do this in 50 minutes," and it worked out all right. And so I think within 2 months I got down to half an hour appointment. So and then it's kind of like working your way back out and like being very lateral in what you do and start having conversations and learning communication and screwing it up often, getting complaints about what you did or didn't say or how you said it and how you came across. And yeah, it's never ending. You'll know that from dealing with people.
yeah,
Two people in the same interaction can have completely opposite interpretations of what happened there.
that's it, bro. It's all about their perspective and how they look at it. But
Yeah, so
I
it's always fun.
guess that's the fun and joy of dealing with clientele every day.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. Humans. Yeah.
Bro, I've had some awesome conversations lately with customers. Like, do you ever have like just deep one-on-ones with some of your clients?
One of my tricks lately has been I can't even remember where I saw it, but I just saw it of late, and it's something I used to do. Is like where you from? It's such a good question, and like people really you know delve deep into it, and especially if it's like nowhere that you have any idea of, and having a computer there, I just always bring up Google Maps, be like, hey, where's that? Oh yeah, like I've learned quite a lot about Chinese and Korean patients. They tend to be short sighted. That's not a stereotype. That is a thing, and so yeah, you zoom in into the vastness of China, into these little small towns where these people are from, and you're like buzz ears, like what goes on there?
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting once you spark that conversation and you actually take interest in your client's life because they're like, oh shit, like this guy actually cares, and then boom, they just feel comfortable opening up to you.
Yeah, yeah, and it's quite cool in this town. So Tokoroa, in the 80s had a big boom. There's a paper mill here, and it's surrounded by forestry. So they had a pretty fierce union going on. I think it was like a local company as well. So it was just this battle of who could move up the chain faster. So I think the average age in this town, there was about 25,000 people whose average age was 25, and they were cashed up, and then at the same time, the forest. What are they called? They're called like New Zealand Forest Service was trying to get rid of a lot of the wild deer population. Also, the deer farming was trying to stock their farms from the wild herd. So there's people going out in helicopters, jumping out of helicopters onto the backs of deer, or like neck shooting them, and then other guys just walking around the bush and collecting up a bunch of carcasses and getting a helicopter to bring it up and pick it up and take it off to a chiller. And like some of the guys were telling me stories about how the mill or the logging would go and strike, so there'd be no work. So then they'd bugger off to the bush instead of, marching and being on strike. And they'd make their month's wages in a week of hunting. And meanwhile, have a leery of a time with their mates and go to the pub. And yeah, it's like the stories, hey. And like, I think some of the houses they bought around here were like $5,000 type stuff.
Fuck.
it's all, it's all outrageous. But interestingly, one of the products that the wood company around here made was kind of like this pulpy weatherboardy type stuff, and in the wet it just turned into like cornflakes and disintegrated. So the company whose all their staff were in these houses kind of settled with everyone, but hardly anyone fixed the botched job and just went on holiday. So there's all these houses around here now, 30, 40 years later, they've just got, holes in the boards. And you're like,
Fuck,
oh, what a
dodgy
shame.
as, bro.
I'm sure they had a great time, but yeah, when we first got here, looking around the houses, it was kind of like, dear, oh dear, do we want to buy one of these?
Did you like put your hand on the walls to see if your hand's fucking gonna go through?
No, not quite, but it was classic. The agent was real honest. I was like, I don't know, I guess it's his ass on the line as well. If he sells you a dodgy house, and you come back to him and be like, whoa, what's the story with this thing? Yeah, open and transparent.
So did you say Tokawara? How do you say it? Tokawara.
Tokoroa. So yeah, old
Tokawara.
that's right. That's you would have heard that name from Ice
Yeah,
and Quade Cooper.
yeah.
So
I was about
and
to say that.
Sean Maitland. Yeah, I think Ice did a bit of a series on their sports chat, like best looking sports players out of Tokoroa, and like there's a long list. One of the dudes, Dallas Seymour, he coached me, well, not quite me. He coached the women's team while I was playing sevens in Christchurch, and then like he's married to one of New Zealand's best netball players as well, and so like he was in, I think, Ice's top 5 of like best looking men. He's a he's a bit older, but like handsome bloke, and at the council they've got this on the counter, they've got all the New Zealand representatives that have come from the area, and yeah, a young Dallas Seymour, you can see why one of the best netball chicks in the country was chasing him, because yeah, good looking Māori lad.
So did you grow up there or did you move there?
I moved there, so I've moved all over really. I grew up in the bottom of New Zealand, Southland. So the name Stag Raw podcast, that comes from my nickname being Stag, which was accidental. New Zealand Rugby has a Shield Challenge competition where if you hold it, you've got to defend it every time you play it at home. And Southland battlers at rugby forever. I don't think they've won an NPC, which is the major competition before, but yeah, we managed to win it after like 50 years, and so we all changed our Facebook names to, mine was Ryan Stag O'Connor, and then I moved from Dunedin to Auckland, and so all the guys I was playing rugby with just, I think they must have assumed it was my nickname or whatever, not knowing the context, and so then it just kind of stuck. So that's where Stag Raw comes from. But yeah, Southland, it's like an eternal 50,000 people city, small city, and there's an aluminium smelter not far away, there's fishing, there's agriculture, so it's like a mix between a service town, all the sort of lawyers, doctors, and accountants and medical professionals that you need for a region, and then this aluminium smelter and a few freezing works and some dairy factories, and yeah, it was like 5 minutes to everywhere. So I just basically did sport all my spare time, and yeah, when I was 12, I decided that I wanted to be an optometrist. So high school was just about going on the journey of doing science and maths and playing sport. I played football. I was a swimmer when I got to high school. That transitioned into being water polo. Played volleyball, soccer, yeah, rugby league at lunchtimes. Yeah, it was a bit of cricket in junior school.
Like everything,
doing,
bro.
doing like school productions, singing in the choir, trying to play the guitar badly, and not practicing enough, so never got any good. Chasing girls, being dumb. Yeah, it was all there to be done, and you could basically do it, but it was probably a little bit of a small pond as well. So every time would win the local competition, then we'd go to national competitions and go, oh heck, we're not as good as we thought we were. But in saying that, there's plenty of like individual athletes, especially in rowing, cycling, that have gone on to the national and international stage and like won world championships and Olympic gold medals and stuff like that. So, just because it's a small town doesn't mean that things aren't possible. And so it's famous from the Burt Munro movie. Old Burt, he's from Invercargill. So when I was my last 2 years of high school, I was actually working at the movies, and that Burt Munro movie came out, and we were running like 3 theatres sold out for weeks on end day. It was unbelievable. People could come back like 4 and 5 times just to watch the same film.
God.
World's fastest Indian.
Bro, like that's the kind of childhood you want, eh? Like you just mentioned, like being outside playing every single sport under that you could imagine. And how times have changed, man. The kids these days are just on their computers and stuff all day.
Mate, it's one of my biggest frustrations. Like I love testing kids' eyes. It's kind of like a challenge to like try and engage them and always ask the question, what are you passionate about? And then it just like breaks your heart when they're like, oh, nothing. What is it? Oh, Minecraft. You're like, well, of course, but what else, man? What would you love to do? And I just, even when they say, oh, I don't really know, I haven't really thought about it. I'm like, oh well, yeah, so and so years old, you can do anything. Just like, even if you don't get anything, just try to plant a seed. Like, mate, it's all on. It's all on. Life's ahead. Get into it.
That's it, man. You just gotta put yourself out there and try as many things as possible. Because do you have a daughter? Is it?
Yeah. You just while you're talking there, I had the thought yesterday where I was driving her back to her mum, and I pointed out the mountain range I'm going to go to this weekend, and I said, "Oh, I'm going to go hunting up there." And she goes, "Dad, can you teach me how to shoot a stag one day?" And I was like, "Oh God, I need to teach myself how to shoot a stag." But yeah, sure. I was like, maybe when you're 7, we'll go rabbit shooting and see how you like that. And she's kind of like, "Oh, okay."
How old is she?
She's 4, so like full of chat. But back to technology, she was trying to have a conversation with Siri this afternoon. That was interesting. It was heartbreaking, because she was so enthusiastic about Siri, and she wanted Siri to come and have some food, and like she was talking about healthy food. It makes your brain grow, and would you like that, Siri? And can I come around to your house? And when's your birthday party? I was like, oh, and all she got out of Siri was like, oh, I don't quite understand what you're saying, or here's something from the internet.
Oh, God bless her, bro. God bless her.
Yeah, I know. It's like, oh, poor girl, but no,
They're so
she'll
innocent
grow
at
up.
that age, eh?
Just the passion, they're just like they're so empathetic. You're like, oh man, was I ever that like concerned with somebody else's well being?
Man, 4 years, they grow quick, eh? My daughter's 2 months already. I was like, wow, where has this time gone?
Yeah. My younger brother's, he's up to 10 months. Hey, and you just go, oh yep. Oh my gosh. Yeah, and then my older brother, he's got his eldest she's 6 months older than Billy, so she's going to be off to school at the end of September or start of October, and then they've got another daughter who's 1.5. So yeah, we've got like the whole spectrum. It's classic. My generation is all boys, and then so far we've just been my 3 brothers that have had kids, but they've all been girls. So yeah.
It's funny
And
how it
again,
works, eh?
yeah, and again, back to like you look at yourself, and go, man, was I ever that empathetic as a child? And then like you see my old man interact with these 4 young girls, and you go, oh, I swear he wasn't like that with us.
Bro, I've had the same realization, man. My dad with my daughter is like so affectionate, and she was like, "Where was this when I was a kid?"
Different circumstance, of course.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. I've had the same thing said from my mum and my dad about their parents. That like, oh, when we had kids, they mellowed out big time. What you saw of our parents, that was not the same people we grew up with.
Crazy, bro. And first of all, we've kind of just gone off track there and got on a good talk. But for the listeners, you want to kind of introduce yourself. Your name's Ryan O'Connor. You're from New Zealand, bro. You're optometrist. Grew up in New Zealand. Played sports. What else do you do? You're a jack of all trades, bro.
Yeah, I don't know if I've mastered any of them yet, which is that's the same, but that's all right. Yeah, I've been an optometrist 8 years so far, so I'm in my ninth year, um, and I've been a little bit all over the country. Christchurch, Waikato, came over your side of the ditch for a while there in the Northern Rivers, back to New Zealand, went to Hawke's Bay, and then I've just recently gone to Tokoroa, so travelled around a little bit, which, spice of life, variety, I guess. But yeah, I have a little daughter who's 4. And once I got to uni, started playing rugby reasonably seriously. Almost made it there in rugby sevens, not really. Yeah, I got 3 non-travelling reserve spots, 2 for Southland and 1 for Canterbury, so that didn't count for much. And yeah, I've just had this continual elite mindset pursuit of whatever the heck success means, and been on ever since uni sort of finished on a journey to sort of define success and what it means for me. And then come 2017, that sort of from blogging, turned it into podcasting. So I still write the odd blog, couple of years sort of thing, but being published, or at recording tomorrow, there'll be 231 episodes, yourself included, Nick, and the Stag Raw podcast. Lots of fun. It's about exploring what success means for all these different individuals, and taking it through the lens of, how do people live life less ordinary when things that are sort of a little bit different come into my sphere. I'd love to have a chat with the person and find out what makes them tick and what drives them forward and what they're looking for, eh?
Yeah, bro, you got an awesome podcast, and it was an honor for myself to be on there. So it's good to switch seats now and get you on my potty, bro. Because bro, I honestly thought your podcast was like a hunting podcast when I came across it.
Yes. Yeah, so I had old James Marshall, he played a fair amount of rugby for the Hurricanes. He's had a stint with London Irish. He's been in Japan. He's played for two of the rugby regions here in New Zealand, Tasman and Taranaki. And it got to the very end of the podcast, and I hadn't asked him anything about hunting, and he was like, "I'm very relieved." He said, because the first, anyone that knows me knows I'm terrible at hunting, and he said like the first year at Tasman Marcos, they were like a conglomerate team of two neighbouring provinces, Marlborough and Nelson, and they came together, and they had All Black Todd Blackadder sort of coaching them, and I think Greg Feek might have played prop for them in the first season. Poor old James Marshall, 1 or 2 years out of high school, he's got a shotgun. All Black Todd Blackadder's hurling claybirds down, and he nearly blew his arm off, and so he was quite stoked that it wasn't a hunting podcast. But the old Stag Raw comes from that nickname of stag, and obviously majestic beast that it is. But there is some hunting content in there, and the last couple of months I've been sort of interspersing a little mini podcast that's sort of 3 to 5 minutes long, from a book called The Wapiti and the Moose, and in the back of that there's these trophies up to 2001 that scored over 400 in this scoring system called the Douglas score, and just like good yarns of these hunting adventures, basically from about 1923 to, I think the last one that scored over 400 was in the 1960s. So guys just getting out there with ex-military rifles and going out in suit pants and attaching tacks to their bloody boots and climbing the wilderness that is Fiordland, that has potential to pour with rain, and cliff faces that are massive, and they didn't let that be an excuse, and we hunted these animals that had come from North America to New Zealand as a gift from Theodore Roosevelt, and it's cool stuff. So there is a hunting element to it, but actually the podcast itself, the Stag Raw podcast, is it's more about life less ordinary and exploring that success topic, and then also just sort of trying to gently introduce health and well-being and the idea of men's emotional awareness, and trying to create a voice for how we feel inside.
First question, are you actually much of a hunter though?
Yes, yeah. All right. So rugby obviously hindered it, because you'd be training Tuesday, Thursday, be there all day Saturday, so you'd have the odd opportunity to go out on a Sunday. So I did do that from when was that? 2010 onwards is when I started, and it slowly built. Whereas the beginning of last year I was out every fortnight for 1 to 2 nights, and really getting into it. Managed to get out of before Christmas, and like I said, I'm going again this weekend, so fully into it. But when you've got a wee girl who you've got with sort of a shared care system with her mother, and that's on the weekend, it's not always available, but I sort of jump at the chance. So most of the time it means I go by myself, which is a bit of a shame, but at the same time it's loads of fun, and I learn a hell of a lot about myself and what I'm capable of, and my mental self-talk, especially in the early days, was extremely negative. I think there was a lot of fear about what I was doing, and the more I've sort of done it, the better I got at focusing on. And needless to say, I've been more successful and can start to feel like I could call myself a hunter, because I'm actually not out there doing an armed bushwalk. I'm actually out there stalking animals and occasionally taking some. So yeah, which is good for the freezer and the nutrition too.
Yeah. What are you mainly hunting? Is it deer or?
Yeah. So in this area here, it's mostly red deer, um, a mix of most of the wild stock in New Zealand came from the UK. There was a bit like in Australia, acclimatisation societies. We sort of shared some of the genetics, New Zealand and Australia. Um, then down towards Hawke's Bay, where I lived before, there's a herd of what are called Sika deer. So there's two forms, the Manchurian and the Cervus nippon. So they're sort of a Asiatic deer, a little bit smaller. There's odd pockets of Samba and Rusa around the North Island. Then down into the South Island, there's lots of red deer. As I said, in Fiordland, there's a large area that's sort of ringed off by red deer that has these wapiti style, and people would be more familiar with Joe Rogan calling them elk, but apparently that's not actually the correct genealogical name. But anyway, that doesn't matter. Everyone knows them as elk. And then there's chamois and tahr down in the South Island too. So tahr's like this Himalayan goat, and chamois is another sort of goatee thing that has hooks on its head. So, and then there's wild goats, there's rabbits, there's the odd wallaby around. Across from me near Rotorua, there's a few wallabies, and down in the middle of the South Island foothills, there's a mob of wallabies eating everyone's grass. But yeah, it's a bit like you guys in Australia, introduced species. It's a interesting balance of sport and game, and habitat and ecology. Which that's also another side that fascinates me about the sport of hunting, is how what we like to chase influences the environment, and what the environment looks like and the ecology looks like and the balance of it. And it's funny when you, from my perspective, when you look at a bush ecology and you go, well, this is reasonably natural, but it's interrupted. But then the very edge of that is like farmland, and then you get back to the sprawling towns or lifestyle areas, and then you get to the more denser and denser and denser till you get back to the middle of the city, and you go, well, this ain't natural.
Mm.
Yeah, but some of the loudest voices come from the middle of the city. You're like, oh, there's a lot of disparity or cognitive bias and things going on with this discussion. Yeah, no, so it's really fun.
I got this one hunting story that I remember, because my dad used to go hunting a lot when I was younger, and he took me this one time, and it was late at night time. We were hunting for kangaroos, and there was this one right at the top of the hill, and my dad just sniped it, and it just rolled all the way down to the bottom. I was like, "Fuck, this is pretty cool."
So did your dad migrate or immigrate to Australia?
No, so my dad was
No?
born here.
Yeah. And so what was his sort of relationship to hunting?
He just went with his mates. It was just like a bit of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
They used to hunt like wild pigs and kangaroos and goats and stuff like that. Because there was he used to go to these certain properties where they just had like wild animals,
Hmm.
like pests and stuff, like the pigs and stuff.
Yep.
And the owners just wanted them to get killed. So like, yep, you can come in here and just shoot whatever you want.
So did you eat wild game growing up?
I didn't eat it. No, they just
No?
killed it.
Oh gosh, bummer. Yeah. Yeah. No, I definitely love the concept of being close to the food. One of my other passions is farming. So yeah, that's what my long-term goal is, to actually own a deer farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little bit obsessed by the old deer, as you might have picked up. But yeah, and in that situation, have you come across Bert Soren, the Sorenex brand of lifting equipment?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so he's fitted out Joe Rogan's latest gym. You'll hear him say Sorenex every now and again. Anyway, he lives in South Carolina, and he's got this property that's pretty open, and they can go hunting on it. But he's got awesome ass home gym set up, and in the summer they host a thing called Summer Strong at the factory of Sorenex, and they get strong men and Olympic lifters, and he was a pretty good hammer thrower in his time, and I think he either went to the Olympics or he's in the Olympic qualifiers, and so he's friends with Olympians and stuff like that. So they just have a very awesome motivational time. Like they're a great follow on Instagram, Burt and Sorinex. And then in winter they do this thing called Winter Strong. So again, it's about like rucking and strength and resilience, and just being able to go on the stalk and concentrate, and then control what you're doing, do archery and shooting and that type of stuff. And yeah, at this property, that's part of my little dream of a place that has like gym, accommodation, restaurant, and farming, and everything's all really close and connected and pretty raw. So yeah, that's sort of my long term motivations for life.
That'd be a hectic weekend. Like that's like kind of like a retreat. Like men could go there, go
Yeah,
hunting, and just like connect with nature, kind of thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. One of the other, yeah, as I said, one of the topics I try to get across in the podcast is men's emotional wellness. I sort of got slightly motivated by hearing Dan Doty talk about every man in the States, and that is like about men's circle. He's done sort of outdoor rehabilitation for youth offenders and stuff. So they've got no technology. They've got a campsite. They've got to make their food. They've got to make their fire. They've got to make their camp. They've got to, and so it just slows them down. And yeah, he said he had to have the odd scary moment with these high risk youths, but on the whole, it was a very therapeutic process. So yeah, I sort of heard his motivation of then doing that with adults and adult men, getting them into men's circles, taking them to these, the mountains of New York, things like the Berkshires or something, Berkshire Ranges, and just, the healing that can happen with guys. Like you've sort of been to some men's medicine courses, it's that
Yeah.
same idea. And then when they do their outdoor retreats, they're just energy and power that they see, it appears to create. And like the cold and conscious guys, just like combining the two, like awareness and emotionality, and then with nature, just amps everything up. And I know anytime I've done Wim Hof in nature, it's just been that next level. Like I've done it at the beach a couple of times, facilitated, and then there's a waterfall in Hawke's Bay that I went to once just by myself, but went off, left the planet type thing, doing Wim Hof breathing. And yeah, I do love the power of nature. And when I went in December, I hadn't been, like I said, at the start of the last year, I'd been every fortnight, and then I hadn't been since the end of March, and it was the last week before Christmas. And I remember hitting the bush edge, and the smell and the intensity of the green just hit me, and I was like, holy cow, this stuff is so good.
You just feel
Like
like free, eh?
oh mate, it's you can't really describe it, but it's just that real knowing feeling, like, oh, this is good. I
Mm.
really needed this. With the rubbish of COVID and lockdowns and restrictions, to get to a place that's just like, freedom's a funny word, because when you're free, you've got ultimate responsibility, but at the same time, you're free. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a cool dichotomy, the old feeling of freedom every now and again.
it is. And like, because I live in the mountains where I am in Australia, the Blue Mountains. I don't know if you know where that is. Um,
Semi.
yeah, bro, there's tracks everywhere, waterfalls everywhere, and just I try and get it into nature as much as possible because as you just mentioned, like it's so healing. And I've been to like men's medicines events and stuff like that, which has inspired me and one of my mates. We're going to be creating like a little business model that is like men's medicine, but we're incorporating actually going into nature as well, where I live up here in the mountains, and getting a group of men together and just connecting and doing breath work and meditation and going waterfalls and cold plunges and shit like that. So it's really inspired me, and I believe everyone should try and get into nature as much as possible.
Mm-hmm. How far are you going on your runs?
At the moment, not very far, but when I
As
was
you said, 2
training,
month old.
yeah, when I was training, bro, I was on a weekend. I would do like 20K runs, like to certain lookouts or
Outstanding.
whatever. Um, but I'm going to be getting back into it because I'm meant to be doing a 50K race in July, a
Yep.
1,000 meters elevation.
Mint.
Yeah,
Mint.
that's gonna be hectic. So I
What's
better
that one
start
called?
running. It's called Elephant Trail.
Okay. Okay.
It's
Yeah.
up on up the coast, so Port Macquarie. Not sure if you know where that
Yep.
is. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's there.
Yeah. The ultra I did the 54. I'd entered the 101, but I ended up, saw sense when I when I was training. Like I think it was the second time I run 46k and just blew out at 30 at the 30k mark. And then of course in hindsight I like had lost touch with my mate that talked me into entering in the first place. But she said, "Oh yeah, that's just called a bad run, Ryan." Like you're like, well, it was fucking horrible. Anyway, but yeah, that was based on the 101 was based on one of the Australian ultra marathons, and so he tried to match the elevation. And yeah, with that 54k, I think we did for 2 and a bit k elevation. One of our runs was like 900 meters elevation over a half marathon.
Shit.
It was a long. It was funny. We were running up. It was pretty much a forestry road, and so on the roadside it's just weeds, and it's like hemlock, deadly nightshade, and this New Zealand native weed that's like, or not weed, like, well, yeah, hard to say what you'd call it, but New Zealand native plant that's really poisonous as well. And I was just like, had these real demented thoughts in my head, like, oh, you could just eat some of that and end it. I was just like, this is a scary place. I mean, then, yeah, like, not luckily, wasn't seriously thinking that, but it was just like this macabre thought. And yeah, finally it was just winding and through forestry, so you couldn't see where the saddle was, where the top of the hill was. It just kept on going, and then sure enough, yeah, the guy that was sort of by that stage about 100 meters in front of me must have got to the opening, and the group of people that were at the station at the saddle started cheering, and it was just, oh, what a turnaround. And then from then onwards, I just had this really sweet moment, out on the tops of this mountain, like looking over the it's called the Banks Peninsula. It's near Christchurch, and just like looking out to the what ocean's that? Atlantic Ocean, Pacific Ocean, and yeah, just feeling on top of the world, running along. And then I kind of got like by myself a little bit. Saw some guys just out on a training run on a different track, and I was going one way and started really doubting myself, and muddy and started falling over, and then I got lost in it. Just like, oh man, the mental mind games of an ultramarathon, just amazing.
Right. It plays games on you. I remember I did a marathon and we did it at midnight.
Oh
And
wow.
it was only around a 1 kilometer loop, right?
Oh my gosh. Yep.
That was the first time I got runner's high and I was talking to myself and shit like that. Like that was a crazy bloody experience, man. And I remember running on the track and it had like someone created like this weird like memorable thing, like has all spiritual rocks and shit like that there. And I was like, oh, the spirits are gonna come out and get me and shit. And it was just like driving me crazy, man. And that was a weird experience because going into it, I think the most I ever ran was like 7Ks. And then I ran
hmm
a marathon straight up. I was like, that's fucking crazy.
Was this
But
all the training that you'd done?
nah, this was like when I first started running. So this was
So
20.
you were like a 7k runner before that, and you're like, I know I'm going to enter a marathon at night, and you went from 7k to 42k.
So I was running the most I ever ran was 7Ks, right? I wasn't
Yeah,
doing it
yeah,
consistently. It was just like
yeah.
every now and then. And
Uh huh.
my friend lives near this like lagoon and it's just a 1 kilometer lap. And he's like, bro, just come do a marathon at nighttime. And it was like 5 of us. We went and did it.
Oh my god.
That
How
was
long did it take you?
5 hours and 20 something minutes.
Yeah, I don't want anyone to believe that I'm a runner. Yeah, I that was a good like 8 months of dedicating myself to it. And I remember afterwards, Dad, like even now, Dad says, "Yeah, you're not a runner, Ryan." And I'm like, I kind of agree with him because I was training for a big ultra and I put on 4 kgs. I'm like, I don't think you're supposed to do that. I think you're supposed to get less heavy. Um, and so like I was 94 kgs running this thing. Not that I was the only one that was that big, but yeah, and my like hips were just screaming, and even my kneecaps were screaming a bit. And yeah, straight after she's like, "Would you do that again?" I was like, "Oh, probably not." And then like by 2 days later, I was already like, hey, "I'll probably do something like that again." And my girlfriend, like Topol's not far away where they do the Ironman. She's like, "You're going to do that one day." Eh? I was like, yeah, yeah. I don't know what it is.
I
It's
think,
just
yeah,
that.
running makes you crazy, bro. Makes you a
I think
lunatic.
chicken and egg though, eh? Like you've got to be a little bit crazy to start doing it, but at the same time, it makes you even more crazy. I think because you, even though it like is really brutal and painful, you do it and you're like, oh, I could do that.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Wonder
fucking
how
weird.
much more I could. Wonder what would it take to not be able to do it.
You hate like every minute doing it, and then after you're like, oh, that was satisfying. What's next? I'll just smash my body again. Why not?
uh,
It
yeah,
was crazy because I only got into running through COVID because I was playing
yeah.
rugby league. I was playing semi-professional rugby league, and COVID hit the season. I played one game for the season, round one. Season got cancelled. I was like, what am I going to do now? Gyms are closed. And my mate's like, why don't you start running? I was like, I've never really been a runner. I hated fitness at footy. And I think the max I got was like 87 kilos. I
Mm.
started running and I dropped down to like 75.
Oof.
Yeah,
Can't say the same for me.
I looked like a runner.
Yeah. Now playing sevens, the best nick I ever got in was like 102 kgs and still doing something like I think it was like 18 or 19.4 in the yo-yo test. Like I can't believe, oh that was the year before when I was 93ish, and the guy that was sort of managing me goes, go back to Auckland, play blindside flanker, and just try to put on as much weight as you can. And yeah, I managed to put on 10 kgs in the year, and I ran a 13.6 beep test at 102 kgs. I was like, that was pretty mean, but yeah, didn't matter. Still got non-shaving reserve, so that was fine.
When did you retire from footy?
So that same year, 2017, I got a cracker of a concussion. Again, I was still playing blindside flanker, and I came off the side of the scrum, and our winger came in on the same man, and it was, a small back, so I was going out on full bore and tried to smash him, and I think the winger coming in, he must have let the guys run down the field, because when I did come to, the play had gone well down the field, which was a bit of a shame. But yeah, we collided heads around the guy, and so the top of his head hit me in my left temple, and I didn't get knocked out, but I was like, "Oh, that was a lot." And so I took off my headgear and went to stand up, and so I had my hands on the ground in front of me and kind of walked in a circle around my hands on the ground, and so then I sat down and I was like, "Oh dear." And the physio came over and she was like, "Are you all right?" And I was like, "Don't think so." And then she was kind of like, "What's the score?" I was like, "No idea." She's like, "Who did we play last week?" "No idea." She's like, "Do you know where we are?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm in Cambridge, but things are feeling a bit weird." And then I got to the sideline. People on the sideline were kind of like, would tell me the score. I'd ask the score, couldn't remember the score. I knew that I was facing south, but I felt like I was facing north, so that was a bit scary. And I couldn't, they were asking me random questions. What did we have for dinner last night? I made it, like grammed it. It was awesome. It was this awesome cheddar platter, and it was delicious, but I couldn't remember that. And then when they had a system of return to play, which was quite good, so I had to go into town and see the doctor, and he did what's called a SCAT-5 test, which is a concussion test. And so I went home, which was just around the corner, got my gear ready because we were off to Auckland, and 3 times in a row I asked, I'm like, "Oh, need to get my toilet bag." "You've already done that." So that was embarrassing. And when I'd had a shower, I basically had to like grab the arm that I had the soap on and move that arm around on my body, then do the same on the opposite side. And trying to dry myself was really weird. Trying to text my dad, and my granddad texted me randomly that day, and so I could think of what I wanted to say, but I couldn't type it out on my iPhone. So that was embarrassing. And I had exogenous ketones at the time, and I knew that they were good for concussions. So I smashed one of those back. Another one, sorry, when I got back home. I had it before the game. And then I got into the GP, and on the drive there, things started to make sense. And it might have just been time, but passed the SCAT-5 test, and the GP was kind of like, well, general practitioner, sorry, doctor, was just kind of like, "Oh, how bad did you get hit?" And I was like, "Mate, this is what happened. I understand I'm okay now, but that wasn't good." And so that meant I had 3 weeks return to play. I got to come back for a semi-final and final, which we won, so that was good. And then when I moved to Australia the next year, I played in the Northern Rivers competition up there, but for various reasons I probably shouldn't have done that. one of them including having a 3-month-old daughter. But um, yeah, once when I got back to New Zealand the next year, yeah, knew that for one, the competition was a lot more intense, and I'm a sort of person that wants to play top level stuff,
Yeah.
and I just knew that, you know, by that stage my daughter was 1.5, and maybe it hit home a little bit more how important was that not to be a vegetable. So yeah, so I stopped playing in 2018, but probably I wouldn't call that the highest level of rugby that year, but all the same, the risk was still there. So I probably shouldn't have done that, but that's okay. I survived.
That's it, man. And what was the feeling like retiring? Like, did you have a bit of a identity crisis? Because I remember, like, when I retired from footy, from when I was like 10, like all I did was play footy, and that's all I knew, and that's who I was. I was a footy player, and my dream was to play in the NRL. And my
Yeah.
parents just loved coming to the footy, and they're like, and then when I retired, it's just like, oh, like what's next? Who am I? Like, and you start to realize, shit, like there's a whole massive world out there, but like, where do I fit into that world? Like, for you, like, did you have a bit of an identity crisis?
Sort of. Um, my ex would probably say definitely, but so a bit like you, as an 8-year-old, I went to a national swim meet and I found a ribbon one day that said I got third at this national swim meet. I remember having 10 years old or something, having a manila folder with Mock. I don't know if you know the iconic image of Michael Klim standing on the bottom of the pool and his head's got the lane rope on top of his head. It was a Speedo ad, the bald beauty that he was. And yeah, just having that idea in my head of going to the Olympics, it took me an ages to sort of think about the trigger for it. But Daniel Loader won the 400 and maybe 200 freestyle at the Atlanta Games, and then shortly after that, they opened a swimming pool in where I grew up, and he swam at that meet. He didn't really perform that well, but anyway, he was got to meet an Olympic gold medalist, and so that was like a very real thing. And so I had that mentality, and then same with football. We had a couple of coaches come out from Sunderland academies, and they just instilled that like Premier League level of coaching and idea of like greatness. And so I had that. And then when I got to university, I kind of had a little bit of an identity crisis there, and I went from being having top level football at home, representing the region, so like the whole southern region. New Zealand was broken up into 7 regions, and going to this club in Auckland and just getting a run off the bench for the seconds, scoring a goal, and then the next week not even being in the team again. It was kind of like, what the hell? So then went and played rugby, and I sort of had moderate success with playing rugby, like just got enough to keep me going and keep pursuing. And then when I finished uni, I sort of decided, I'll stop playing rugby. And but by the end of that year, again, I got back into sevens and got into the Canterbury squad. And as I said, well, I went and represented them at a tournament, and then got non-travelling reserve for the nationals. So then I carried on playing rugby for a couple more or 3 more years after that. So I'd already had these like little stints of retirement. And when I left New Zealand, part of the reason for leaving New Zealand was I didn't really see an opportunity of being a director in optometry at that time. And so I wanted to leave New Zealand to get a little bit of a travel under my belt. We had planned on using Australia as a springboard to go to like Bali and then Europe, but didn't turn out that way. And so coming back to New Zealand, I really had that, right, now I'm going to take that elite mindset of sport into business. In Australia, I started doing CrossFit as well, and there were some older guys there that had been, reasonably good sports people. So that kind of gave me a little bit of an outlook to, there's other things in life. Having my daughter as well gave me the outlook of there's other things in life, and also the opportunity to start going hunting more as well. Kind of was like, oh, I can, and I probably have shifted my identity to a little bit of hunting and a little bit of business optometry type stuff. Not that much of them's come to full fruition, but yeah, they've kind of been my work-ons, and I've had the podcast. So yeah, on the one hand, yes, but I've also been able to transfer those skills and intensities to other projects. So yeah, that's been good. But yeah, the whole identity of like, if I don't play rugby anymore, who am I? That was probably definitely behind playing rugby in Australia, and the whole like, well, how do I meet friends? Oh, you go to a sports team and then you meet friends. Well, there's probably other ways of doing that too. But anyway, that's all right. You learn that.
Exactly. And in a way, I'm actually grateful that I did retire because when I hung up the boots, that's when it led me down a path of personal development and the
Mm,
podcast and everything that's come after. And I was like, if I continue to play footy and live in that world of just train, eat, play, I wouldn't have discovered any of this. I wouldn't be here talking to you today and wouldn't have spoken to the amazing people that I've been able to speak to on this journey and grow as a person. Because for so many people that are listening now, they know that back when I was playing footy, I would barely say a word to anyone. I was so
mm,
quiet. I was
mm.
so in my shell, like in my comfort zone, and so nervous and had social anxiety. And bro, this podcast is like made me a new bloody person, man. So in a way, I'm definitely grateful. Some days I get the itch. I'm like, oh, I want to go out and play, and then I watch it on TV. I'm like, maybe not. Those Islander boys are too big, bro.
Mate, I was even the same. We were on a run the other. Oh, it must have been before. Oh no, it must have been early in the year. And I went through the football grounds, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll play football. And then I was like, hang on, Ryan, like, like you're in a town that's in a very rural area. Where do you think who do you think they play against? Like, your Saturday will be gone. And of course, when you're on a bus with some people who are living for the weekend, there's
Mm,
going to be a lot of pressure. And then you might ruin your Sunday too. And then there's going to be training, and you know, not to judge things, but this was a good way to talk me out of it. It's like, when you play sport, you're too serious for this, and you're going to get frustrated that only half this team's serious. There's the potential that only 6 people are showing up to a training, and you're wanting to be the best 11 on come Saturday. So I was just like, no, that's not a good idea. And plus, then I couldn't go hunting anymore. So I was
that's
like,
it, bro.
yeah,
That,
but you're
that
right. You get that little bit of itch. Like, oh, maybe I could go back to doing that.
yeah, like
Resort comfortable, not known past. Hey, it's your previous self going, well, remember me?
yeah, I can still do this. Next minute, get
Yeah.
fucking smashed.
So are you watching the NRL?
Yeah, man. Bro, when hung up the boots, I didn't watch it for 2 years. I was just like, I'm not
Mm,
interested anymore. But now I'm watching it again, which is giving me that itch. But I'm like, should I? Shouldn't I? I'm like, nah, because I play Oztag instead, which is just footy with tags, and that's where I get
yeah.
my little competitive nature out. And I play like state cup, and I've played nationals and stuff at like for that, and it's good fun. But as you said, with the footy and what kind of kept you away was, some of those boys, only some take it serious. And for me, I'm a very competitive person. If I'm going to play, like I want to play to the best of my ability. And some just are there for a piss take, for a good time, to get on the drink and do whatever they do, which is fine. But that's not me. It's like, if I'm going to put my time and energy into something, like I want everyone else to be on my level too. So
Yeah, that's what frustrated me in Northern Rivers. The boys were definitely there for the beers afterwards, and I'd imagine some of them had had some Friday night beers as well when they turned up on Saturday morning, which was always frustrating. And it was such a contrast to, like, I was going to the 5 a.m. CrossFit group, and you can imagine getting to the freaking gym at 5 a.m. You got to be a little bit mental in the head. So we had this real committed group. As I said, guys had been previously good athletes in their chosen sport. I think one of the boys there had been in the Titans Academy, and another one had played like New South Wales country and all that sort of stuff. So like, they were capable of some stuff. There's some guys there training to go and do SEAL Fit over in the States. Our coach went to the CrossFit Games. I think she ended up 19th, and she would train with us at 5 a.m. So like, yeah, to then make it on a bloody Saturday, and the guys are half-assing and just looking forward to their beers afterwards, and you'd lose, and or some of the score lines as well, mate. They were like they were cricket matches, eh? It was it was just like, what's happening here? Are we tackling people or are we just scoring tries?
Bro, I remember playing one game. This team was horrendous. Their coach ended up chucking on the boots and playing, and we beat them. I think it was 99. They may have scored one try. It was like 99-4, 99-0 or something like that. I was like, what the
Oh,
hell?
this was like 50 at 50 each. That's what I mean by like, are we tackling? It was weird, and yeah. Anyway, that's all right. It was still fun, but that little part of me was like, what are we doing?
Yeah, I know. Sometimes it's not worth it, eh?
Yeah, yeah. No, but so are you a Panthers fan or?
No, I actually go for the West Tigers.
Yeah, I was gonna say we're a Tigers fan. Yeah, no. Uh, I like the Chooks. And with that first round, I tuned in and I was like, are they even on the field here?
Yeah,
The
they're
night the Knights destroyed them,
they're
and
not
then
playing
next week
too
they
well.
turn. Oh, they turn around against Manly, but what happened? I missed what happened
Rabbitohs,
this
they
week.
lost. I think it was Golden Point or something.
Oh, no, I quite like those three. Roosters, Rabbitohs, and Manly. I got to watch a qualifying final of Rabbitohs versus Manly, and chose the right side of the stadium to sit in. I sat with the Rabbitohs fans, and they won. So it was like a good, enjoyable evening in Sydney by myself.
Tell you who I'm liking this year, the Gold Coast Titans. They have a
All
good
right.
squad. Have you
Yeah.
watched many games or?
No, I sort of last weekend especially I tuned in and watched the Roosters game and then the Warriors game, and I was sort of flicking between the Warriors and the rugby and like the Super Rugby over here. So yeah, it's I don't know. I need to figure out how to like multicam the TV or something like that, so you can have both channels on at the same time. I don't know. Who's your sports supplier over there? Is that Stan that does both those, or you got to go across different channels?
Um, I either watch it on Foxtel or there's a app called KO
You're right.
where you can watch like all the sports channels. I'm not sure if you can watch multiple at the same time because I never do that. I usually just watch one program. But yeah, I think it's either Foxtel or KO or something.
Yeah, someone's going to give me grief and be like, "Oh yeah, that's channel 56. You can watch all the channels at once." Yeah, like they do with the Olympics. Hey, that's always I don't know about handy, but yeah, you can see what's going on.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
when did you like start your personal development journey? Because I feel like when I was playing footy, like none of that was on my mind until I kind of finished. Like for you, did you go on that journey once you finished, or were you kind of looking into that stuff whilst playing in that?
Um, as I said with swimming, I don't know. I've heard the Australian swimming youth development officer that then became the New Zealand swimming development officer that he came up with this term that there's no elite youth athletes. And like when it came to swimming, I like resonated with that so hard because come 8 years old, I was convinced I was going to be an Olympian. Come 13, I was like, screw this. This is not this is not worth it. And you're not even like you're still like 10 years away from being an elite swimmer. So who knows? And like even more to that, like I took a year off and went to our like provincial championships and qualified for the Division 2 nationals and went there and won the 200 butterfly. Like that's stupid. Like I was just that much stronger and capable with bugger all training. And I was like, well, that shows that the last 8 years or so of my life hounding away and getting to the pool like 7 to 9 times a week, like we could have done this a different way. But yeah, I sort of someone gave me the winner's Bible for Christmas, and I like dove into that. Like I said, I created a manila folder. I stuck this picture of Michael Klim on it. I put all these goals down. So I'd done that, and then we got the Sunderland coach. That was about when I was 13. I still remember John Herman saying of like look good, feel good, play good back then. So it was like a men's team as well. So I was 13 and interacting with men's players. He brought out a few guys from the Ireland academy systems and guys that had known in Sunderland and Newcastle came over to New Zealand for a holiday basically and played some football while they were at it and taught us a thing or two. And yeah, playing regionally in football, playing water polo. At at school, we sort of had a high performance sports unit that I got involved with in my last year of school. My dad is a rowing coach, and he coached professionally for sort of 4 or 5 years, but he was coaching the school at the time, so he was sort of instilling that sort of stuff. He'd coached rugby as well, so when we watched rugby, would analyze the game and things like that, and same with football. You'd ask, how'd you get on? What sort of happened, and all those sorts of things. So, and would have to drive sort of 2 hours when it came to regional stuff to go and play and train. So there'd be lots of back and forth. It'd be like our coach, the assistant coach, me and my mate, and sometimes a couple of mates in the back of the car, just talking football and talking mindset and what did you do and how did it go and all that sort of stuff. So I had that heaps, and so then through uni, nothing really. Didn't even really read books. And then when I finished uni, again, that was probably one of the first identity crises I had. Went and did some psychotherapy, and he basically said, like, mate, your self-confidence is a bit shot. You need to talk to yourself like you'd talk to a friend coming along, telling them their everyday problems, and you'd tell them, like, it's all right, mate, that's cool. We can get on with this. And that made a big, big switch. So I started journaling that year. I started trying to get my finances back in line after, 7 years of uni. They weren't too nice looking. And I started, like I said, I started blogging in 2015. Come 2017, started listening to podcasts, Gary Vee, Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, that sort of stuff. I went on a leadership award run by Rotary in New Zealand. That was, again, an introduction to psychology and sports psychology. Again, I went and did another session of psychotherapy. We had a sports psychologist come and join us with our club team, and he actually eventually went on and was the sports psychologist for the Black Ferns Sevens team that won the Olympic gold. So, good resources like that. And yeah, it just, as you well know, once you start seeing those little light bulbs, they start to reinforce. So at the end of 2019, when I started doing some personal development coaching stuff through my work, it was basically like, oh yeah, you're aware of a lot of these things. Let's, now we just need to try and get on an actionable path to the goals that you want. So yeah, it's been a lifelong journey, but it just starts to come together and make a sort of an apex of the things that are true. And doing the podcast, you have enough long form conversations with people, you keep hearing the same things. And as you know, my final question of what keeps you in flow, the themes of like being true to yourself, being consistent, having those practices, and just trying your best to live with a purpose. And if you don't have a purpose, just keep trying shit until you find something that starts to resonate. So yeah, it's been cool to sort of galvanize a way of life, I think, and a mindset.
Exactly. And you touched on journaling, and I see that you do it every day. For
Well,
the
not quite.
listener, well, most days, but
Work days, I'll call it that. We'll call it work days.
okay, work days. But for the listeners, like, I go on about journaling and writing your gratitudes and stuff. Like, there's so many benefits for it. What benefits have you seen, like, from yourself and your personal growth and your mindset throughout the years of journaling?
Yeah, so on my Instagram, I'll share the quote that I'll go and look up. And most of the time, I just search Instagram Stoic quotes, and I'm sure I'll run out of them. And plenty of them keep coming back, but I don't think I've repeated too many. I read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations the end of last year, and like dog-eared a bunch of those pages and underlined some quotes out of that book. So I think it's sitting here behind me. And Man's Search for Meaning. I just like that real sort of Stoic philosophy. So that's my like trigger to get into journaling, is to basically look for some reinforced wisdom from the past, ancient wisdom, I guess you'd call it. And that's how I sort of start off. And I write the date. I write start again. That's a Rich McCaw thing. And then I put 86,400 and 30,000 down. And those are 33,000, sorry. That's the amount of days that people generally live, and 86,400 is the amount of seconds in a day. And so that's, again, a little bit of a Stoic thing, like a Momento Mori, that acknowledging that you are going to die, so sort of seize the day. And yes, and then the seconds thing is kind of like, well, if 1 second doesn't go so well, there's still a shit ton of those left in the day, and so you can change your environment, change your mindset, change the things you're doing to achieve so much in the day, because there's so many opportunities, so many seconds in the day for you to do something great. So that's what my sort of plants are to get started. Then I do the gratitude, and as you know, that's just especially when you do it often, just a way to have a positive outlook on the day. I then do 3 affirmations. Lots of those are around like strength and discipline, creativity, abundance, even being loved. Again, back to that self confidence. You know, the reinforcement that so many people do love you, and that you're a loving person, or you're a kind person, you're a creative person. You know, I want to reinforce that I'm there for my daughter. You know, that's that sort of affirming that you are, and also that gives you that aspirational sort of push to continue to do that, because that's the person that you want to be. That's the person that you want to affirm those behaviors and that character. And then the last thing I do is we'll write in some form. I call it future gratitude, but it's also sort of visualization. So I am grateful for aspirational behaviors that will, when I'm old and sitting and looking back in the things that I've prospered from, I'll look back on that behavior as I'm glad I did that. You know, so that's how I structure my journaling. And yeah, I just, if I'm consistent with it, then I find that my quality of life's just better. My mindset is clearer. Same with breath work in the morning. I find that my day just goes good, and I don't really know why, but when I let those two things kind of fall away, I start to notice a sort of a agitation or a grumpiness or something like that, and I can now pretty quick to notice, like, oh, it's been 5 days since I've done Wim Hof in the morning. Oh, I haven't written in my journal. I go and open it up and like, holy shit, that was a week ago or 2 weeks ago. Even you go, oh, that was no good, you know. So yeah, and those days separate have been a lot less now. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's interesting how you can go a few days and you just actually really start to notice the difference of fuck, I haven't done breath work, I haven't journaled. And it's like, crap, I need to continue to do this every single day because yeah, it may only take 10 minutes, but it changes your state of mind and makes you just feel so good. And I think it makes you just be present because I feel like if you're not journaling, if you're not breath work, like what are you doing? Like you're focusing on so many different things. Like you're not just coming back to yourself. So it's very important. And that's why I invite everyone to journal, to write their gratitudes, to do breath work, cold therapy, all these kind of things that allow you to reflect and then come back to self.
Yeah, it goes back. It goes to that self awareness thing. That's another
Mm,
thing that plenty of people have said keeps them in flow. When you can be aware of yourself, when you can observe yourself, and you can observe the things that people say, it really extends the time um, between the action and your reaction. And that's one of the quotes that I've got written there somewhere. I don't remember what it is exactly, but I think it's around meditation, that it extends the time between action and reaction, and that space in between those two. I think this might be a Viktor Frankl thing, is where you can determine the outcome of what's going to happen. So if you can extend that space, give yourself more time to then act in a way according to your core beliefs and who you are, then you're going to find that, you know, day to day goes a lot better, because there's going to be less combative interactions, and there's going to be more considered interactions. Having things like, instead of being reactive, just trying to remind yourself that, like, what people say, that's interesting. That's like just like a real small frame shift. Yeah, that's something that I think journaling or meditation or Wim Hof, or all three or all none,
mm.
um, I, cold therapy or whatever it is, just one of those tools that uh, allows for time and space to do self awareness starts to show up in your day to day interaction.
Yeah, exactly. And like if you've had a bad day, just writing it down in your journal can actually sometimes just make it like not go away, but like just get it off your chest. And it's a area for you to vent and get rid of it. and just, as you said, be able to self-reflect and be self-aware of what happened and how you've acted maybe to a certain situation, and then be like, okay, this is how I acted, this is what I can change, or how I can respond differently next time, and then move forward. But you wouldn't have been able to do that if you didn't take the time to actually sit down and journal.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Dude, podcasting, you've how many years? You started 2017, bro. You've been around, eh?
Yeah, 5 years.
What
Yeah.
what are some of the lessons you've learned from podcasting?
Put the fucking thing out.
Yeah.
Um, Try your best to be ahead of yourself. There's some weeks things get quite tight, but that's also like a good pressure to bloody create something and try and create something good. Like that's another skill that you get out of podcasting is just pulling shit out of your ass to, you know,
Especially when a
sometimes you
guest
are.
cancels, eh?
Oh yeah, mate. Sometimes you are recording and publishing, like I do Tuesday morning. Sometimes you are recording and publishing on a Monday night. There's the odd one that's gone out on a Wednesday or Thursday, and you've got to be okay with that. And I don't edit too much. People might notice that, and especially now with capturing a good sound, that's been I've felt a lot better about my lack of editing. But early on, if I was doing one live, it was literally the inbuilt camera, or it still is the inbuilt camera, but it was the inbuilt microphone as well of my laptop. When I first bought this microphone, I had it the wrong way around. I tried to do thinking that because it's double cardioid, so there's sort of the sound that's right here in front of me, and then there's one that's a bit behind me. So that kind of worked. But then with IMAX, there's kind of a driver for the microphone and a driver for the camera, and I didn't have those quite synced up. So then that was a bit of a disaster, learning experience. And then I bought studio mics, and so then the recording software changed, and so I was kind of like, oh god. But thankfully, it was going. The driver was the audio driver, so then my video and sound were synced up, so it was quite nice. It was like happy accidents. Um, and then Sam Ringdale, who you've had on Better Than Before, he hit me up and he's like, mate, for your reels, you should get onto this Canva stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, how do you do that? He's like, don't really know. And I was like, oh cool man. So that was one of the things I did during COVID. I watched a couple of YouTube videos and got on there and had a play around. I was like, oh, this actually ain't so bad. It's quite intuitive, which is nice. And then, sure enough, I put up my first reel with this new skin, and Sam hits me up and goes, "Oh, mate, what did you do? What did you do?" I said, "Oh, watch these 2 YouTube videos." I was like, cheers for the suggestion, mate. Yeah, it was actually this easy, and yeah, no, sometimes there's this amazing website called Google Way, and it just has. If you it's a bit like with like mental health and mental problems. If you think you're the first person to have the problem, mate, you're not. And if you Googled your problem, you'll probably find out with 101 million answers to your problem. But it's the same with your friends. Just like talk to your friends, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, yeah, same." And
Yep.
it's the same with podcasters. Like, have you screwed up a video? Yep. Have you lost audio? Oh, one time I drove an hour, sorry, north of here with my microphones in my little box, which I made, which is great. Took the box out of the car and then went back to the car. I was like, fuck, where's my laptop? It's at home. And it's kind of like, well, I think we ended up having an hour chat, which was quite nice because even though I knew lots about them, they knew nothing about me. So then when we did record via Zoom, unfortunately, it was actually a really good chat. So, all was not lost, but, there's stuff like that where, if you expect it to go wrong, it is going to go wrong. And never say on a podcast that, oh, I haven't had a problem for a while, because that next one, which was the case, will go, do something dumb.
Yeah. Anything that involves technology is going to fuck up at some point or other.
Yeah. Oh man, no, it's yeah, lots of fun. But yeah, I think consistency, not being attached to perfection, just like doing it, being happy with it, knowing that you're getting better. Even your questions, like start off with written questions. when you find yourself not looking at the questions anymore, well, then you maybe don't need so many questions anymore. But also, when you research someone, it's good to have a little reference, like, oh, you did this. That was cool. Tell me about that.
Mm.
It's, where you're from, Um, for a long time there, I was asking people what they did in the weekend because a lot of people work, but especially me, like I find that I don't like being defined by an optometrist. I like being defined by the whole person that I am, and
Yeah.
the weekend can be super random, and that's a cool thing. Yeah, you'll learn so much from conversation, and it means that when you interact with friends and stuff, you have so many more deep and broad and wide and random conversations, and you feel confident asking some strange questions. And just, if the mood's kind of gone flat and your mates have all resorted to checking their Instagram, spark up a random topic, and it's awesome.
Yeah, that's one thing I've noticed. Doing the podcasting and talking to a vast range of people and the conversations that I have, it's transitioned into my everyday conversations, and just like now the knowledge I have or the random stuff that I'll bring up, and it just sparks like an awesome conversation. It's like I wouldn't have had this if I didn't start podcasting. And I love how you mentioned like repetition and consistency, because that is the biggest thing that I tell people when it comes to podcasting, because people start all the time. I think, oh yeah, I just sit in front of a mic and talk shit with someone. Like there's so much more that goes into it, and you're just going to continue putting in the reps. And for so long, like I know when you mentioned like planning and you had so many questions, like that was me. I had like 20 questions and I'd sit there and let's just like read them all. And it's like, nah, now I just like, I do my research and I have like a few questions, but I just go with the flow. It's just like, fuck it.
Yeah,
I'm not here to be perfect because there's no such thing as perfect. I'm just here to be myself, have a good time, connect with you, and continue to build my network and, bring some value to not only myself and you, but also like the listeners. So don't be so
yeah,
hard on yourself and just have fun with it, eh? Like you're gonna fuck up.
hard out.
I remember I did a podcast the back end of last year. I stuffed up the intro 3 times and I was like, oh fuck, bro. And
That was a
then
fucking good podcast too. That were who was it with?
Jordan
I listened to that.
Potts.
Jordan Potts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember what his alternative for mindset was?
Mind Flex.
Mind flex.
Yeah.
That's the word. Yeah, that was outstanding. I was like,
That was
Jordan,
yeah, that was
that's a good
actually
option.
a really top podcast. And I love that you brought up the mindset mindflex, because I've never thought of it like that before. And then I heard it in one of his other podcasts, and then he brought it up. I brought it up again on that one, and it's like, yeah, so many of us are just like mindset, mindset, mindset. But when you break it down like he did, is like we're just stuck in our own thought pattern. We're not actually evolving or growing. Yes, there's a
Mm,
time and place to be like mindset, but majority of the time we should just be like mind flex and going with the flow and continuing to grow.
yeah, yeah, hard out. No, it's funny. It's like all the things that people don't see. That's another one. Nobody knows what you didn't ask and what you didn't say.
Mm,
Yeah, and it was funny when you was. Oh, I saw that clip and you brought up that topic. That like, hey, like it's not the conversation; it's everything else that goes behind it. And you've got to organize it. You've got to edit it. You've got to put it out. You've got to clip it. You've got to put that out. Um, and that was I had thought about it, but never really seriously. And you sort of said that, and it's funny how the whole is it central activating reticular system or whatever it is. The whole like if you talk about red toyotas, you'll see red toyotas like
yeah.
me and my girlfriend and her daughter and my daughter. We play yellow car, and it's turned into also red trucks. You call it out when you're driving along, which is because we do so much bloody driving. But
Or it's like you
after
buy
that,
a new car and then you see it
oh mate,
everywhere.
they're everywhere.
It's like, fuck, I thought I
Yeah.
was going to be the only one with it.
But then after you'd sort of put out that clip about, this takes a lot. Then I saw this clip and it's like, there's this many million podcasts, and Joe Rogan's always astounded. And he's like, it must be more now. But it's at that like critical mass where, yeah, there's this many million podcasts, but something like 80% fail after three. Talking with Jim James Marshall, he sort of said my target to start off with was get to 7 because that's the average. And I was like, that's, which is cool. That's an achievable low ball type result. And then something like another 80% of what's left fail by 20. So you're at like 88 or something percent. And then like another 80% fail by 50. And so you're into like 96%. And then it was like another 80% fail and you're into 100. So if you get over 100, you're like in the top, 2 to 4% or so
We've made it, bro.
podcasts.
We fucking made it. We've made it.
I know. It says like, and you're like, oh, cool. But like, that's still a big number. But it's that like metrics are helpful, and if you want to monetize, they're useful. But the biggest ROI on doing a podcast is the conversation, and like, sponsors would be great. I'm very lucky that I work in a career where this really doesn't matter. Whilst it'd be good to, reimburse some of the time that I put into it and the equipment that I've bought, but fuck, it's so awesome and so many opportunities and so many connections. Like you said, that value in the network, and then hopefully, someone can listen for an hour or 2 hours while they're in their car or doing something that's sort of less than deep work and just have it on in the background, or making their breakfast, and get an insight into somebody else's world and grow their mind flex, and just be a larger person just from the space of an hour or two. It's an amazing platform, and I love it.
It's very fulfilling, especially when you get messages from people that have listened to your podcast and like, wow, like this really changed my perspective on life or the certain situation or topic. And it's just like, wow, me sitting there and talking to someone for hours really had an impact on someone's life. And I've received plenty of messages, I'm sure you have as well. And there's one that sticks out to me, and I say it in a few other podcasts too, but I did a podcast with this guy, and he has 2 kids, I think, but he was going through depression and he went to take his own life, and thank God he survived. But he felt comfortable enough to come on the podcast and be vulnerable and share his story. And when I released it, his mum messaged me and goes, Nick, thank you so much. Like, this is the first time, he's ever opened up about his story and, being vulnerable about it. And this is the first time really I've heard it. And it's just like, she's like, keep doing what you're doing. You're doing amazing work. And man, the goosebumps it gave me in the film, and I was like, wow, like I got to keep doing this because I'm changing lives here.
Yeah. And it's, there's a CrossFit coach here in New Zealand that put up a post today that it's like the keys to success are getting started and keeping on going. And I sort of messaged him saying, talent will probably help you to keep on going, in the context that people will support you and people will pat you on the back, but it doesn't guarantee success.
No.
You've still got to keep on going.
That's it. And like
you got to start, you got to keep on going.
That's it. On podcasting, like you see these famous people, these influencers think they can start a podcast because they got the following, and they do a few episodes and they realize, fuck, there's more that goes into this, and then you just don't see them again. It's like, like, come on, man, like this. You can't just come into this space thinking that you're going to be the next Joe Rogan and be successful because you've got a big following on Instagram. There's way too much more that goes into this.
Yeah, and that's a good thing to remember if you are, like us, the humble independent podcast out there, don't be disheartened that like, one of the comedians starts a podcast, or, someone from television or Married at First Sight, or, whatever it bloody is, starts a podcast, because high chances that 3, they won't be there, 20, they won't be there, and they very, very high chance that they won't be there after 50. So don't worry about it. Move on, carry on, keep consistent, keep going.
That's it. And like, don't get me wrong, in the beginning, like that kind of low key pissed me off when I put in all the work and these like famous people start a podcast and they get all these downloads. I was like, fuck you. But like,
it's natural.
Yeah. But both of us are still here today and they don't have a podcast no more. So it's like, just keep going, cool. Put in the reps.
Yeah, it's cool.
And
hard out.
Just keep bringing that value to people. And on value, you mentioned you have like daily practices and that. What are they? We mentioned, journaling, breath work. What other stuff do you get up to in the day?
Mate, I like Jocko, the old
Yeah.
discipline equals freedom idea. So um, I'm in the position where I live by myself here in Tokoroa, and then in the weekends I'll usually or often have my daughter. Often my girlfriend will come and she'll often bring her daughter as well. So it's quite a different environment come the weekend. So I sort of do don't take that for granted, and as like a bit of a balance. And so in the week, I really try and like optimize my time. So that's partly why I haven't been watching the likes of rugby or whatever, and I've tried to balance that out a little bit more. Watch some hunting shows, watch a bit of the footy on the weekends, just so I can have something to chat about, especially with the Tokoroa locals that love the rugby league. But when it comes to the morning, I've got my alarm set for 10 to 6. Get up, message my girlfriend and tell her I love her, and then I'll go and lie down on my floor. I'll chuck on the Wim Hof playlist that's on Spotify. I think Wim Sum has created that. And I'll do 3 rounds, two through breathing through the nose, and the last round I'll really try and get quite dizzy and breathe through the mouth, and just not time the breath hold or anything, but just kind of like let it happen. And often I'll wake up with tears on my face, and I'll go, "What happened there?" And then I'll just do a little bit of stretching on the floor. Head out to the garage. For a while there, I just had some of the 180 Project gymnastics rings. I've got those hanging quite low, so doing sort of dips and pulls with those. And now I've got a 150 kgs worth of plates and a 20 kg barbell. I've got a 12 kg kettlebell. I've just bought what's called Circuband, so it's in a resistance band that you can attach handles to. And yeah, I'll modify the programming from the CrossFit gym that I'm a member at up in Hamilton, and yeah, I'll do that. So that sort of takes me through to 7 a.m. and then I'll come inside, chuck some bacon in the oven, put on a percolator of coffee, and I'll sort of, hopefully I've got content clipped, but if not, I'll clip content, put that out on Instagram Reels, TikTok, LinkedIn. Again, if I've clipped it already, then I'll have already scheduled it to go up on YouTube, but otherwise I'll do that too while my breakfast is cooking. Then cook that, interact on social media while I'm doing that. I'll have a podcast on while I've been, ever since I finished the Wim Hof, I'll have podcasts on or music on. Obviously shower, shave, iron the shirt, get out the door and get into work. And then, just really when it comes to work, just try and take my time. People always come in and be like, "Oh, you're busy today?" I'm like, "Nah, I have the dream job. I have appointments, so I don't need a rush. I have the time. I know when people are going to or should show up, and if they don't show up, then I've got an opportunity to sort of do some continued personal development, read a book, write in my journal, or just scroll and interact. Or I do Duolingo Italian. I think I'm currently on like a 63-day streak, so been stuck with that. Again, another thing to just be consistent at and grow. And evenings I'll record podcasts, run, that sort of jazz. I'm always interacting. I love cooking. I love sunshine. I love breath. Yeah, and I love consuming content. So I've got music or podcasts on, and watching stuff. And when that's what I use social media as, to sort of watch stuff, engage stuff, and not the buying stuff. Or I've curated it pretty well that it's people that interest me and that are inspirational rather than influencing. So yeah, and then come the weekend, it's like swimming pool and banana pancakes for breakfast, and 2 girls, it's like dolls, and come play with the dolls or the Duplo or the Kinetics, or come play hide and seek and that sort of stuff. Go to the park, go on the scooters. It's like slow paced. Put on Barbie movie or Spirit or bloody My Little Ponies and things like that. So it's quite contrasting, man. But it's really 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 cool. See, it's just where that gratitude comes in. That it's like even though I'm alone during the week, it's also an awesome opportunity to get so much shit done and make the most of it.
That's it, man. Just you're not living for the weekend, but you're just embracing, you're just enjoying the weekend, eh?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's what I'm currently doing. Because before I'd be like so disciplined, and say if I missed doing something in the morning, like I would let that ruin the rest of my day because I was like, oh
Oh, but no.
fuck, I didn't do that in the morning. I failed this day, kind of thing. And I love that you mentioned the 86,000 seconds because I never knew that, and that actually puts it in a lot better perspective because you're like, okay, I stuffed up here for half an hour. There's still 23 more hours of the day that you can get shit done and turn it around. And I was in that mindset before, and once I changed that, I think it changed once I had a daughter because
Mm,
life's unpredictable, bro.
fucking
You want to get
hell.
up and do something in the morning, and it's like sometimes it's just not possible.
Oh, it doesn't change when they're four either, man. Like, it, that sounds dumb because you've been hearing it for years, especially when you had no idea because you didn't have any children, and it's just like, yeah, every level of parenting, people were just like, nah, dad doesn't change. You're like, oh man. People keep saying that to me. I didn't believe them, but fuck.
Yeah, man, but you just gotta go with the flow, not be so hard on yourself. And for me, during the week, I get all my work done. I spend time with my daughter and that, but then the weekend, I just kind of shut off, and it's just all my daughter and my partner, and
Mm,
I'm enjoying every moment of it. And it's a good break too, because for so many of us, we get so caught up in chasing our goals and our work and stuff that we don't actually take that time to just to be and enjoy time with our loved ones.
yeah, and that's the other lucky thing about uh, you know that time as an employer is like pretty much I can't take my job home. I need the person.
Mm.
So yeah, now when I get to that level that I'm chasing of being a director, that's going to change, and I'm going to be thinking about the 101 things. But and I'll probably have access to various stuff. But at the end of the day, optometry as a practice still about you've got to see the patient and take them on that patient journey and give them the best care possible, and hopefully that's rewarded and people see value in what you're doing for them, and you're maintaining their vision. I think people are the second highest thing they're scared of is going blind behind getting cancer. So it's pretty not. I don't know about important. I don't want to embezzle it, but when it comes to people's fears, that's right up there. So it's a delicate balancing act of, you know, you don't want to be fear driven. You want to be progress driven and opportunity and prevention and educating, rather than like you must get an eye exam.
That's it. The big
Yeah.
thing is being preventative, not reactive, not waiting for shit to go bad and like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to fix this now." Like, and
Oh,
it's exactly when it comes to like mental health and mental fitness and stuff that I'm talking about. It's how can we put in these preventative measures, as in we've been speaking about breath work, meditation, all that kind of stuff that you can do daily that puts you in a great mindset and can prevent you from going down a dark path of depression and all that kind of stuff.
hard out, hard out. Yeah, nothing worse that like diabetes is my worst one. It's what I'm really passionate about, but it's also because it's the most painful. Like you chuck the letter chart up and it's no good. Sometimes I've done some imaging beforehand, so I even know that it's no good, and it's just like or they've come in for an emergency that they vaguely can't really see, and you chuck the lead chart up, they can't see, and then you have a look inside and you just see blood, and you're like, oh shit. Like young women, I've written about it in a blog that they're wanting to have children, and it's just like, oh man, if only we could undo these last 30 years to where we've got right now. But yeah, I'm hopeful that we can heal that person and turn them around and mean that they have those children and see those children and grow old with those children. But yeah, those types of things where the prevention or the education or something just hasn't paid out, those are the heartbreaking moments. So yeah.
You mentioned diabetes, so can that really affect eyesight? Can it?
Yeah, mate. So your eyeballs the most sensitive to blood sugar, closely followed by your kidneys. So the blood vessels in your eyeball and your kidneys are simply one layer cell protecting the blood from the organ. So like if you can think about the kidneys pretty easily, that's the filtering organ. So it needs like a pretty smooth or a small membrane between those two, electrolytes and proteins and things in the kidneys. And the eyeball is kind of like a neural tissue. It's an extension of the brain in a way, and yeah, it's the same. So if the blood glucose is too high, then the red blood cells oxidize. You think of a red blood cell that's carrying iron and carbon dioxide and oxygen. So effectively, you end up with rusting. And if you've got more glucose there, then that rust happens faster. Oxidation damages cells. You've only got one layer of cells. They're damaged. Then that cell will bulges out. Microaneurysm. We start to see that, and that's where we know, what's your blood sugar at? Things aren't going so well. And then those microaneurysms can rupture. And once you've got blood in an organ, which it shouldn't be, then things go south. You've got so much, inflammation factors, healing factors, scarring, that sort of stuff. In a delicate organ like your kidneys or your retina, it's not supposed to do that. So, yeah, we're on the lookout big time for that. And yeah, the fluid balance of that means that your vision fluctuates because your lens and your cornea and your retina are swelling and retracting, so that's not consistent. Too much glucose in the lens causes crystallization and oxidation, so again you get cataracts faster. You can see some wicked cataracts. That's repairable, you do the surgery, but that's evidence of poor control elsewhere. And the eyeball's not a lone thing. It relates to every organ, but yeah, it's got these susceptibilities that it's probably good that it's the canary that that most susceptible organ's starting to shut down. The rest of it's probably not far behind it, but at the same time, it's also not good because they can't see, and that's a big, like we said before, that's a big fear for people. So, yeah, like I said, you don't want to put it up there as this big topic, but at the same time, on an individual level, sometimes it can be quite heavy. So yeah, that's why I get quite passionate about prevention, diet, and holistic lifestyle, and well-being. And if you've got a better well-being, then you're likely to make better health choices too. There's that whole healthy user bias. There's same people that are mentally sound and mentally active and mentally aware, mentally fit, they're also going to know that if they drink too much on the weekend, then they're not mentally sound, or if they eat too much sugar, then they have a depressive episode. And all those things start to play in someone's overall life and overall longevity and overall quality of life and the time that they're alive. They're not spending their last 40, 50 years miserable and uncomfortable and broken. We want to live a long and fulfilled life. And Dr. Peter Attia has this thing called the Centenarian Olympics, where if you're at 100, you could get up off the floor, you could lift your great-grandchild above you, or maybe even great-great-grandchild above your head, and carry them around. And yeah, that was one of the coolest things a couple of years ago. My grandma just turned 90, so she was about 88, lifting up my 2-year-old daughter and holding her. I was like, yeah, go grandma, that's cool. Like, she's not big either. I was just like, that is awesome.
Yeah. So how do people look after their eyes? You mentioned, our health and our fitness plays a big role. Like, everything in our body's connected, but specifically to the eyes, how would someone look after
them? Be like that whole world of like be healthy.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean? Yeah, we generally know that like whole food is good, non-processed is good. There's that whole saying that the diet you can stick to and maintain is probably the best for you. I'm biased towards protein. I like, as I said, the bacon and eggs for breakfast. I like a low carbohydrate, sort of high fat, high protein approach, but that's what works for me, and that's where I tend to have the most clearest and consistent energy and do the things that I want to do and maintain the muscle mass that I want to have. But yeah, I think if it's local, seasonal, and unprocessed, you're on a pretty good track, no matter what it is you're eating. Sunshine in healthy doses. We don't want skin cancers, but we evolved with the light. The light helps our nervous system. The light helps vitamin D. It's helps our circadian rhythm. Our circadian rhythm helps our health. I just like all the things that are healthy. Then they're the same for the eye. Keep it healthy, and then knowing that you don't have glaucoma by having an assessment that says, hey, you don't have high eye pressure, hey, you don't have a nerve that's going away. Knowing that you don't have macular degeneration, not that there's that much to be done, but yeah, the earlier you can supplement and change your lifestyle habits that have got you there, then the earlier or the longer you can maintain that organ. Don't smoke, it's, yeah, keep active. Blood. So something like in 40 minutes, half the blood supply goes through your retina,
Oh,
and so like being active obviously boosts blood circulation, keeps that the retina is surrounded by this massive mesh of blood vessels, and like circulation is important. You need to clear away a lot of waste from the retina. It's one of the highest metabolically active organs as well. That's why people get macular degeneration. It's a buildup of waste. So you want that circulation to get rid of the gunk. Same with the nerve. You want that good circulation around the nerve. They're analogous with things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's disease, glaucoma and macular degeneration. Again, it's like a nervous tissue. So it's kind of like the well-known health things. Fish, green and gold is another concept. Oily fish, green leafy vegetables, or just vegetables in general. Raw nuts. Don't use processed seed oils. Yeah, that's probably the majority of what I say. Control your blood glucose. Yeah.
have you seen an increase in like bad eyesight and stuff from like technology and that? And also, like, what's your thoughts on like blue light glasses and shit? Do you think they work or?
So with your first question, if people have a refractive error, a computer's pretty good at telling the person that they've got a refractive error and that they're not in focus. The flicker of a screen, I think, plays on your eyes focusing system, and because it's a near task, it means that you've got to hold that focal length. And so if your focus isn't sharp and your eyeball's kind of trying to find the right spot, then you're going to get some eye strain. Um, it, with people doing increased near work because they're stuck looking at a phone, for example, or a device, a tablet or something like that, or even a laptop, if they're looking at that for a long period of time, or their overall time spent is more near based, then we're going to see more short-sightedness. I was reading something today doing a CPD, continued professional development, that showed that the amount of short-sightedness, even in kids that were being treated to slow short-sightedness, increased over the COVID lockdowns in Australia. So that was quite a fascinating bit of data out of that. So yes, in a way, devices as such, because that was the things they are using, but the whole like lockdown inside, not getting that daytime light exposure, not being in an interactive classroom where you're looking up and talking across a room and looking at boards and things like that, you're all in this space,
Yeah, they're just like
has
on the phone like this the whole day.
has progressed that short-sightedness. So and then sort of near fatigue and sort of probably linked to what we're seeing with around anxiety becoming a more common thing. I'm also seeing that in vision, because when you're anxious, you are in your fight or flight state, and that is not conducive to being in a parasympathetic rest and digest state of tuning out the world, looking at a near task, basically not being aware of the whole room. If you think about being involved in a good book or being in a deep creative process, you're on another planet, and that's not very good for protecting yourself from the saber-toothed tiger, proverbial saber-toothed tiger. So if you're in a very anxious or fight or flight system, you're going to struggle to do near tasks, and I see that a lot, and I find that commonly for males, that'll be the 6 to 9 year old boys who are having trouble reading and feeling the pressure to learn to read. And then I'll see that in teenage girls, more so in the ones from girls' private schools. It's a generalization, but yeah, that's what I generally see, those two things show up. So nervousness and anxiousness does show up in your eyeballs. It's a great thing for looking at the autonomic nervous system, your rest and digest capabilities, and your fight or flight system. So, for example, they come in with the bandit of symptoms. They have that very characteristic behavior trait of an anxious person, and you look in their eye with a light in a dark room and watch their pupil constrict a little bit and then immediately release, because they just they need that light in there, because they've got to take in the environment. And I'm talking quite quickly because that's kind of the behavior they show. And that's the same when someone has a concussion. Their autonomic nervous system goes out the whack. They become hypervigilant and strained, and they can't read all of a sudden. Like, just like that, someone will go from being ever so slightly long-sighted in their early 40s to not being able to read and not even being able to focus their small amount of long-sightedness. And so their distance vision's even crazy. And that's partly why they got chronic headache. And yeah, it's the same as being anxious, as getting a good whack in the head.
That's interesting, yeah. And I like how you mentioned like young boys go through that stuff too. And for me, that pops up is like for young boys, like their minds elsewhere. They're just out of it. They want to be everywhere else, and they don't want to just sit still and read. And one thing I hate about that is they're then labeled as like ADHD and shit like that.
Oh, mate,
That's what
mate, we were having this discussion
that.
yesterday. Yeah, there's, I suppose you won't mind. My girlfriend's daughter talking about this boy in her class, and it was, the whole crush situation, 7-year-olds, and she was like, "Oh, I need to have a chat to this boy." And I said, "Oh, what's up with old mate?" And "Oh, he's a bit of a trouble kid." And I said, "Oh yeah, oh, but he's the best dancer and he wins all the athletics." I was like, "No doubt." That's why he's shit in the classroom.
Yep.
he's a machine. You can't sit him down for 8 hours. No wonder.
No. And kids like that are really talented. It's just you got to stimulate them in the right way.
Oh, it's tough, and it's tough, eh? Like, that's where the whole school system. It's tough. Like, what's the answer? It's hard to know, but yeah, with a standardized system, that's not going to fit everyone.
No, the schooling system is way behind. It's so like stuck in the 1800s or some shit, but everyone
Making us for
learns
the factories.
like everyone learns in a different way. And yeah, I don't know. We could make a whole podcast on the schooling system because in a way it's pretty fucked.
Yeah, I don't know the answer though. That's the only trouble. we could make 2 hours of bitching about the school system. But, yeah. And this is coming from somebody that did 7 years of university. So hey, I can hardly talk. But
7 years, bro. I did a year and a half at uni. I was like, nah, this is not for me, bro. I need out.
Not for you. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was studying sport and exercise science, so like, yeah, that was some in-depth shit, bro. The only good thing was doing the anatomy, body stuff, because I got to play with like the cadavers and stuff like that. That was probably the only fun thing.
Yeah, we were in my third year. I was doing anatomy, and we were doing this sort of research paper. It's called pre-honors, and we used to do our classes in the anatomy museum, and just like be surrounded by, bits of cadaver and things in specimen jars, and you're trying to focus on this 6-person lecture, but yeah, around you, you're like, man, that is interesting.
Doesn't even look like a person, eh? It's just like just an object.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, some of the anatomy museums probably have some specimens that would be frowned upon, but at the same time, it is what it is, and that happened. So it's also great that they do have those specimens, but it's not for the weak stomach, that's for sure.
No, I remember doing it, and some people just couldn't even be in the room. Like they just felt sick straight away because like they smell weird because of all the stuff they put in it to preserve it, and it's just like it's a weird smell, man.
Oh, it's a weird thing.
Yeah.
It's definitely weird. We talk about primitive autonomic nervous system and stuff. You'll definitely get a response seeing a cadaver, that's for sure. Yeah. There's I don't know if it's available on the internet broadly or not, but there was a TV program in New Zealand where they interviewed the Otago University medical students in a journey with their cadaver. It's a pretty moving sort of series. I hope it's on YouTube, but yeah, there's plenty of tears and plenty of gratitude as well that these people have donated their body to science, and that tool has allowed those persons to have such a broad understanding of medicine. Like, I always ticked the old organ donor and having a bit like you been with cadavers, I'd be quite happy for myself to be donated to do that. But Yeah, like it is a crazy situation that a previously live person is now dissected. Like, oof, that's heavy.
It's weird, eh? It's like
Yeah,
that used to be someone's mum or dad.
yeah, brother, sister,
Yeah,
all of those things. It's amazing, and I think the thing to realize is that like that is a personal choice. Like I said, I'd be quite happy for that to be me. Yeah,
yeah. See, I wouldn't, eh? Because some
yeah,
students, the shit some students do to those cadavers, is like, nah, I don't want to be in that position. Even though I'm dead, like, I don't want my body. Just yeah, you probably know what I mean. Some students are,
yeah.
yeah, they go
I
crazy
know.
on that stuff.
There's always that slim chance, of course. Yeah, there's also grave diggers out there, Nick. So you know, there's always that slim chance too.
Just cremate me then.
Yeah, cremate you. Yeah, no, I think that's where I'd ultimately like to end up. Dust in Lake Wanaka, but until in between, I think can be quite good to be of use for a little while longer. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there's
That's
plenty
my
more
weird
years
thought.
ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
How old are you? You're 30 something or
33, mate. Yeah,
young, mate? Young. I'm 25. I only just turned 25.
nice. You got that frontal cortex engaged. It's a beautiful time to be alive.
Bro, on men's well-being. Now, you said
Yeah.
your podcast is like, you talk about that a lot, and that's what, my podcast is around men's mental health and stuff like that. What's your what's your take on, I guess, modern masculinity and the way
Yeah.
men should be kind of thing? Because like there's like this
There's
thing of,
spectrums, eh?
yeah, it's like on one side you got this older generation of masculinity of you can't talk about your feelings, you can't cry, you got to be tough as nuts, you got to work your fucking ass off until you die. And then we got this other, and then you can go to the far side, and it's like, I don't want to say it, but some men are weak these days. Like they're way more feminine, and it's like, how do we find that balance kind of thing? Like, what's your take on the whole masculinity thing?
Oh, I had a little bit of a like explore around it. So, like I said, in 2017, I found Everyman, which Dan Doty. Yeah, he was previously a cameraman on Meat Eater. Like I said, he used to do these restorative justice expeditions for weeks with these at-risk youths and things like that. And he's a burly guy, and they were talking about men's work. And I think the guy's name's David Data. I think that's who he is. And so across about 100 podcasts, it really sort of helped me to get that emotional awareness and emotional literacy. So actually be able to, not that I'm any good at it still, but at least be a little bit better at trying to explain how I felt about something, not just say I'm good or bad or shit. you know? And from every man, there was a number of offshoots of that, people that have sort of come into the program, worked on becoming men's coaches, whatever that means, and then they created their own program, and so I sort of followed them along for a while and didn't really resonate. And for a long time, I sort of had a little bit of an instinct to try and create that in New Zealand, and I still haven't come up with the answer of that. I think what I'd like to create was, like I was talking about before, that really sort of retreat mindset of quite hands-on, nature-based type thing. And then Trevor Boehm, is he back there? Probably somewhere. Anyway, he has quite a like harsh take on it, like sort your fucking shit out type type idea. Then of course there's the Jordan Peterson idea, which I've only really listened to on podcasts. I haven't read either of the books or anything like that, but I respectfully enjoy what he says. Maybe like anybody, there's not necessarily agreeing with all that he stands for, but generally what he says and the concepts he introduces, I think are valuable. Like I said, Jocko Willing, that's at the end of the raw type way, just fucking get it done type end. And I think that's probably more to where I sort of land. And then there's sort of another sort of ultra spiritual realm of these men's coaches, and I had a interesting interaction with one of them. I was following him for a while, and he put up a question on his Instagram, like, how do I engage with more men? And I was like fascinated by that statement. I was like, why do you say that? Like, what's with that? And he was like, oh, 80 to 90% of my audience are female, but I want to be a men's coach. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. And he was sort of in the like men's sexuality type thing. And I was like, you know, that's a interesting sphere to be in. And it's also fascinating that you're here positioning yourself for a male market, yet your audience is female. But then the actual volume of males was quite high. And I sort of said to him, well, do you have clients? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, do they support you? He said, yeah. And I said, well, do you have capacity for more clients? And he's kind of like, no. And I was like, well, what's actually your metric? Is it an audience that has females and they want their partners to work with you, and that's your referral thing, and is it working for you? Or do we care about my Instagram audience is my worth? And he kind of ho-hummed on that one. But yeah, and then there was another. That was the west coast of Australia, and there was another one on the east coast of Australia, and they were all sort of variations of the same thing. And yeah, I think when it comes to masculinity, we are in a generation where we, and maybe what happens in Ukraine and Russia might change this perspective quite quickly, but we're in a generation where we have time to think about this whole thing. Like for me, I'm a fourth generation New Zealander. 2 generations it took to sort of go from being a labourer to my grandfather was his father was a dental technician. My grandfather sort of worked on a farm for a while, and then he became a dental technician and then worked in insurance. So, they managed to do well for themselves. Then my parents went to university, then I've gone and did like a science and a laboratory degrees, and then me and my brothers have all gone and done professional degrees. And it's like we have the time and the resources to think about this stuff, whereas before, they just kind of went from survival to prospering to improving, and now I sort of see it as like, well, what does it all mean? And so it's the first time that anyone's ever answered the question, and that's why we've got such a spectrum of solutions, or what people think is the answer. And I really say that none of them are necessarily right, and they all probably have their benefits and they all probably have their downfalls, and we're still in the early stages of even asking this bloody question of like, what is masculinity versus femininity? How much do we need of it within ourselves? And that's probably a personal question. And and how do we want to show up in the world? And what's exactly what I said with the blog and the podcast? What's our own metric of success? And masculinity, femininity is probably part of that whole story of who you are as a person. So yeah, that's, after all saying all that, that's probably where I land with that whole question.
So if I was to ask you, like right now, what does it mean to be a man and show up as a man? Like what kind of values do you believe like a man should have?
Yeah, so now being a father to a daughter and semi a male role model to another daughter, it's I trying to model the values that I'd hope that they'd see in a man. I think there's still a place for working hard and consistently. It's funny, we have these 2 books that are around emotions and feeling them and recognizing them and labeling them, and it's as much teaching them as it is myself. So yeah, that softer side, knowing that like my daughter is and we both have the love language of touch, and she always, like breakfast or busy and doing something, will come up to me and just be like, "Huggle, Dad." Yep, right, stop. you know. And I always, or not always, often trying to be conscious of like coming down to her level and like looking her in the eyes and making that eye contact, and developing that soft skill, but also setting boundaries, and having hard nose, and discipline and respect, especially with two girls, mate. They're 4 and 7, but they will parrot discipline, and you're like, that's not necessary. um, they're often, trying, they compare themselves to each other. I've got this great thing, but they've, like, driving home yesterday, we did Easter egg hunt because we're not going to have them at Easter yesterday, and it was like, oh yeah, mine was pink, but I wanted blue because that's what Annie had, and I was just like, well, you know, you had the great thing too. It's cool that you like blue too, but have the great thing, enjoy the great thing, Uh, being older versus being younger, it's kind of like, well, you need to work at that. That will come. That's teaching consistency and effort, and the value of effort, the value of starting, the value of trying, the value of failing, and the value of trying again, and improving. Yeah, I'm real keen on reinforcing her effort, and that she's learned, and that she got better because she practiced. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that because that's how I want to turn up as a father as well, especially when my daughter gets older and you know starts to learn about life and how to act and stuff like that. And you know, I want to show her, hey, fail as many times as you want, but get back up and keep working hard. And yes, you can, talk about your emotions. This is a safe environment. You can come to me whenever you want. Fail, have integrity, be strong, independent woman. Like all these things that I can show, but and lead by example. So like when she is old enough and she's dating, if I ever let her out of her room, um,
Yeah.
she
I
doesn't
know.
just, I guess settle for someone or pick someone that doesn't doesn't treat her respectfully and treat her the way a man should treat her. And I hope, I guess we're only just doing the best that we can with what we know. And it's a journey and we just gotta, yeah, we just gotta do our best at the end of the day, don't we? Like they
I
don't come
know.
with
Yeah.
a life doesn't come with a manual. Parenting doesn't come with a manual, unfortunately. We just gotta take it one day at a time.
Yeah, it's always a development in it. Yeah, for every single person. Yeah, it's the same with like we're saying, our parents being grandparents. Their first time doing that, but it's their second time interacting with little kids, and that's probably why they're doing quite a few things slightly different.
Yeah. And then they try and tell you like, oh, this is what I used to do and stuff like that. And it's like, thank you, but I'll try my way.
Yeah, I hear you. I love that. I hear you.
Oh, the joys of it, eh?
That's
Dude,
good.
you mentioned throughout the podcast, you mentioned a few times that you try to live a life less ordinary. You want to speak into that a bit more and what does that kind of mean to you?
Yeah, like from a crude analogy, I have a parallel life where I didn't go to university and I just worked it out, and I often like the whole like simulation idea that there's somewhere out there in the universe, there is a me that didn't find optometry at 12 and just went through high school as a sports loving person, and then just kind of did jobs and made it work and had an entrepreneurial spirit and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I think that's why I like talking to people of that type of caliber. So it's kind of like, do I see that in myself? And then, yeah, picking up on those nuggets to, because I remember early on with optometry, as I said, I did a graduate program, and one of our first professional development within Specsavers was kind of like, personality and leadership and all that sort of stuff, and I think it must have been a disc analysis, and he was my disc analysis that was extremely dominant, and I think skeptical, I think it was. Anyway, and then there was everyone else's, and they were the complete opposite to it. And I was kind of like, oh, okay. So I'm not your usual optometrist for a start. So that was cool. And then, yeah, I find that as a profession, again, that Jordan Peterson thing, that we're very agreeable as a profession and as professionals. The whole and that's probably why you say, like, I wouldn't expect you to be an optometrist, because it's very much a person that sits in their room and is very analytical and all that sort of stuff. Whereas I'm more of a like commander type personality type, and very as I said, I'll be a dominating personality type, and that probably comes unstuck in some of my patient interactions and professional interactions. But within my field, I know that I'm not ordinary. When it comes to doing sport, as I said, I've always tried to do it at a high level and try to be into that extraordinary athlete or whatever. And so, yeah, I love hearing other people's stories about when they've found their niche, or found a set of skills, or a set of mind, what do we call it, mind flexes,
Mind flexes,
or
yeah.
mind flexes and mindsets, where it's done them well in a particular field, or a broad range of fields, and they've been able to accumulate some successes, and like I said, one person's success is never the same. And so that's again why, like, what is ordinary? It's, you can be extraordinary, you can be less ordinary, and do something great. And I think that's often where greatness and successes happen, when you try something different. So yeah, that's some of the framing and exploration that I take with that theme. Yeah.
Yeah, I connect to that because it's easy to be ordinary, eh? It's easy to
Yeah.
just be another sheep, but sometimes you got to be that black sheep and just stand out. Have you read that business book called Purple Cow?
No.
It's basically like the story. There's a business story about it, but like they were driving past this field of, just imagine like you're driving past a field of all these cows, and
Mm.
after, like, when you first start seeing cows, you're like, oh yeah, these are cows, these are cool. After a few kilometers, they all look the same
Mm-hmm.
until you see one that looks totally different. So
Mm.
like when it comes to business or it comes to life, like you got to be that cow or that person that stands out.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be extraordinary or less ordinary, if you want to just be like everyone else, do what everyone else does. But if you want to be at the best of your game in whatever that you do, you got to do what others aren't doing. You got to really put yourself out there and stand out. And that's what I live my life by, because I don't want to be ordinary no more, because for so long I just did what everyone else did. And I remember this time period between when I finished school and started uni, where I was doing nothing with my life. I was just
Mm-hmm.
like that that typical like young, not teenage. Well, yeah, I was teenage still, but just sleeping in, staying up late, watching TV, wasting my life. And I was like, this is not going to get me anywhere. I can be like
Mate,
everyone else, or I can make a change in my life and, you know, be extraordinary and be at the top of my game.
yeah, you just really reminded me of, like, going to uni and going along with the wave of everyone else in a hall and fucking it up.
It's
That's
quite
why I took.
depressing, eh? Like for me, it
Oh, that's
was.
why I took. That's why I took 7 years, because the first term of the first semester I fucked it up, and it was like, nah, yeah. So you're not going to get into optometry. So I learned harsh lessons that year, and sort of changed my mindset. Learned a little bit how to study. The next year I got to Dunedin, and again I like got swept up a little bit in the Dunedin culture, which anyone who's been in New Zealand knows that as Scarfy culture. There's a good movie called Scarfies that's kind of semi about it. There's an ex All Black and ex New Zealand Warriors, Mark Ellis. His autobiography is quite good about the going into the Scarfy culture. But yeah, and that was like sort of drinking and that sort of stuff. And I sort of had this conscious decision that I wanted to do better in rugby, and so I'd played in the best Colts team, and we'd made the final, but I'd sort of been on the bench and on the fringe, and I'd made the conscious decision that next year I wanted to do better. I'd sort of started to run out of money at the end of that year as well, and I was like, right, I've got to work as well, and if I work, well then I probably won't be on the piss so much, and so I did do that in the second year, and I got involved in a training program, and managed to play a premier match for the club and that sort of stuff. But at the same time, I was still getting caught up and going on the piss with my mates. But I got into optometry, and then went to Auckland, and again went and flattered with guys from my first year, and some guys from Dunedin. We kind of bought that to Auckland, and it was way more expensive. So then I got the financial hangover and the not doing so well in uni again, and the not getting where I wanted to in rugby, and then sort of 2-3 years of that yin and yang of being the person I wanted to be, but also like being with other people not going so well. And then my final year in Auckland, I flattered with some really good mates that are now lifelong mates, and we had this real elite mindset. We went to the gym, we ate well, we didn't go to town. If we wanted to have a sort of a party, we'd just host a party at our flat and then go to bed, and then Sunday would study and go to the gym. And like I said, I put on that 10 kgs, was the best nick of my life. Had an awesome rugby season, awesome summer playing sevens, and yeah, it was just like one of those magic moments. And yeah, that was making that conscious decision to do it elite and not be ordinary, and forego things that like your rugby team are like, come on the piss this weekend, and you're like, no, going home, can't afford it, whatever, and like just getting so much more out of it. And it's the same with like I said, that influencing versus influential or inspiring. It's like, and that financial decision, it's like you can buy all the shit and have nothing to show for it, or you can save and invest and then create wealth and longevity and legacy. And it just takes those little mind shifts, mind flexes.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah,
It's good, eh?
It's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah, that's again to that topic of less ordinary. But you got to be prepared for people dragging you down or crushing you, or you making them feel uncomfortable for the, because you're holding up a mirror to them potentially not living up to their potential or seeing.
That's it. Brings out the
seeing a gap in their
insecurities,
life.
eh?
Yeah, so you got to be got to be prepared for that, and that's where that like personal development and personal awareness, self awareness, really comes to the fore, because you do create some uncomfortable situations, and also you have those with yourself, because you do want to people please, you do want to get along and have a rah, but you got to find that balance and purpose and direction, and yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
it goes to show how important your environment is too. Like you mentioned, you were hanging around with all these people, and then you found those group of guys that you're all driven, and you had the extraordinary high mind flexes, and you were going to the gym, and you weren't getting on the piss as much, and like you were like really focusing on yourself. And that saying of you're the average of your five closest mates or whoever you listen to, like it's so true. Like who you surround yourself with is who you basically become. If you're going to surround yourself with the people that get on the drink and do drugs and eat shit food, well, more than likely that's what the path that you're going to go down. But if you surround yourself with people that are into building businesses and their health and fitness and all that kind of stuff, like you're going to be more inclined to go down that route. So environment and the people that you surround yourself with is so important. And another thing I touch on too is it doesn't always have to be like physical people that you surround yourself with. Like we live in a world now where we can connect with people all on our phones. It can be
that year it was Keegan Smith and Elliot Hulse and the Hodge twins and like looking at CrossFit workouts and all that sort of shit. And now it's like Cameron Haynes, Jocko Willink, David Goggins, Rogan, Jordan Peterson, whatever you want, take your pick.
Just put good shit in your ears, bro. That's all it is. It's
hard out.
It's so important. I wanted to ask you, how do you define success? Because you've mentioned it a few times. Like currently now, how does Ryan O'Connor define success?
Mate, I was actually thinking about this yesterday, driving home from dropping my daughter off, and like it was one hell of a weekend. Like my daughter was here, my girlfriend's daughter was here, and she was here. Like Saturday was stunning. We had like got up, that had eventually had a reasonably good sleep. They woke up with good energy. We did the Easter egg hunt. They were stoked. We had breakfast. Nicole and I went and did a workout in the garage, and the girls joined in. Then the neighbours came over. Then we went swimming, and like good as night. They all had a great sleep the next night. We went to the park, dropped her off, and there's a roof over my head. Um, Financially good, loving relationship, awesome family time. They getting on well. Um, my girlfriend, my daughter says like the cutest shit to me now, like, I miss you so much and stuff like that. And like, you know, as I said, driving back home, Dad, can you teach me how to, shoot a stag? Things like that. That's that real sort of intrinsic happiness is pretty bloody successful in my eyes. And yeah, I think being in a position to seize opportunities and think clearly and have an awesome direction and barely any distractions. Just sort of have that real joy in your day and joy in your life and an ability to be in charge of the direction you take your life and be able to do things for those people around you. And like I was able to, my mates just moved up an hour down the road and be able to pop in and see him, and like just like wonderful, and chat with mates on Messenger and all that sort of awesome great stuff, and just keep fostering that and have that compound is really, really cool. So again, that sort of some of that future visualization and future gratitude I have is just for doing those daily habits, those compounding joys, and I think that's what right now feels successful, and I think that's what's going to keep growing that success and expand on that success. So like I've lived a life of micro successes, and now I think I'm entering a stage of my life where it's becoming more broad, and I think into the future it's going to be expanded. But I think I've reached, I think I'm successful to me.
Yeah, like I think we all get trapped in that, I'll say mindset. We get trapped in the mindset of success is the money, the house, the cars, all these material things. And don't get me wrong, when I was younger, that's what I thought it was too. And
They
recently,
help.
yeah, they're good. They make you happy for the few seconds when you get it. But for me, what I've learned, like success is obviously what you said, spending time with the people that you love and that make you happy. It's it's those everyday feelings of fulfillment and joy and happiness, like whatever those feelings are for you, and you know, living a life, in alignment with your purpose and living life on your terms. For me, that's what success is. It's how can we have those internal feelings every day without those
Mm,
external achievements? Because
mm,
for so many of us, we're like, oh, I can't be happy until I get the house or until I get the job promotion. So I'm going to be miserable all the way until I get that. Then you get the house and it's like, oh, I'm not happy now. I want a bigger house. Instead of just enjoying the journey and feeling those feelings that you want to feel every single day. So then when you do get that external achievement, that's just the cherry on top. And you're like, yeah, I can really enjoy it now. And
hmm
I think that just comes down to, I guess, finding your self-worth and really what you want out of life.
mm. Yeah, that's perfect, man. Yeah, not letting your future aspirations or goals take away from your current life experience. That's one of the things. Like I said with my daughter, try to teach her like it's a real shame that she has to come to me and miss her mum, and vice versa when she with her mum has to miss me. But one of the things that she's having to learn is that don't forego that future aspiration of like being with mum. I miss mum, so I'm going to ruin this current environment. I try and instill in her that that's a good thing to miss your mum. That it's great that means you love your mum and your mum loves you, but you're also going to enjoy yourself here. And unfortunately, and I'm really sorry about it, but it's going to be the reverse. But you're going to have a great time there as well, and that's part of why you miss that environment, is because you have a great time there. And same here, you miss this environment because you have a great time here. So let's, and acknowledge that, yes, that's a dumb reality of the situation, but we can enjoy things, and it's the same for us individually with goals, like you said, like houses or cars or jobs or promotions or salaries. We, just because we don't have that yet doesn't mean right now can't be good. It's good to have drive, carrots and sticks and all that sort of stuff, but also don't forego today's happiness for because something's going to come soon. There's still good shit now.
Yeah, to be grateful for what we have now, but still
Yeah.
strive to get what you want to get.
Sweet. Yeah, that's awesome.
Dude, what is maybe a piece of advice, some tools, some resources, or something that you give the listeners?
Hmm. I think borrow other people's experiences. So whether that's books, audiobooks, podcasts, conversations, you can expand your experience pretty easily, and especially movies, documentaries, even. I do see massive value in non-fictional medias or contents, because you can expand your world, take action on things, because you'll be surprised how far you get. You'll be surprised how quickly you learn. You'll be surprised how much the things that you thought were the end of the world don't even matter. And the reason why so many people talk about imposter syndrome is because they get so much further than they ever thought was possible. And that's true. And I think what's hit home a lot of times in the podcast, and what we talked about with daily practices or Stoic philosophy, is that self-awareness it really is a powerful tool, and knowing yourself means you can know where to go, means you know who to interact with, means your decision making is easier. It means you know within you when something feels right and feels bad, so your mental energy is used up less. Another one is like find your love language and foster that. Like I said, touch and quality time are massive for me, and so the more you can do that, the more you can communicate that, and the more you can resonate that with people. So yeah, the more love you're going to have in your life, and that's going to be freaking awesome. So yeah, those would be some of the advice things I'd share off the top of my head.
Awesome, brother. I'm going to clip that up and put it on Instagram.
Oh, wicked, bro. Nice.
Dude, this podcast has been epic, man. We've been going for nearly 2.5 hours now in that flow state,
Shit, bro.
bro.
Nice.
Fuck.
Yeah, it's good.
We could keep going, but man,
Yeah.
we've touched base on, I think, everything today. We've been a bit of everything. We've shot the shit. We've talked about yeah, basically everything. Last question though. When your
Yep.
time's all up and done in this earth, what are 2 words you would love people to describe the person that you were and the life that you lived?
2 words. I just had old Adam Greencheek come to my head. The old good cunt. I don't know why. Oh, my mum would be horrified.
Yeah, Ryan,
sorry.
he was a good cunt.
Maybe it's talking to you with that Aussie twang. I don't know. It wouldn't be that. No, I could have put that on the old tombstone or the obituary. 2 words. I think dedicated and passionate would be 2 ones that I'd love to be remembered by.
Oh,
Sorry
fuck.
for asking that question.
Oh, good, bro. That was a great response. Yeah, dude. I reckon we'll wrap it up here, eh? We've
Yeah,
had an
sounds
awesome
good, bro.
chat, man.
Yeah,
Where can
I've got nice red lights here, so I shouldn't be too tuned up. But no, it's been a hell of an energizing conversation.
yeah, good, bro. For the listeners, where can they find you on social media? Find your podcast, because I was going through some of your episodes, and You've spoken to a lot of guests, bro.
It's good fun. Good fun. Yeah, 5 years they mount up. Almost 5 years.
What episode are you
So
up to now?
yeah, so we're on Monday, and tomorrow morning 231's coming out. So yeah, that's been over 5 years. 231 episodes. The Stag Raw podcast, I think it's on 11 channels. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Google Podcasts, Pocket Cast,
Yeah.
all the things.
You'll see it. It's the one that looks like a hunting podcast.
It's got a big stag on it. And Instagram, there's 2 channels there. The podcast channel is Ryan O'Connor NZ, and then I've got my own one, which is Stag Ryan. That's more sort of the day-to-day sort of jazz, and a little bit of the 400 Club that I spoke about, that little micro podcast. TikTok, I think, is Ryan Stag O'Connor. Twitter is Stag Ryan. Yeah.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yeah, most places. If you search Ryan O'Connor and look for some sort of stag-related paraphernalia, that's probably me.
You'll find him. I'll put the links in the bio anyway. But Ryan,
Cheers,
dude,
bro.
it was great to get this chat up and going. I know we both got COVID at the same time. We had to postpone.
It's all good, eh?
But-
The old spicy cough.
Yeah,
you had a bit more than spicy cough. I
Oh,
think.
bro, that was a horrendous, man.
You got the good one.
Oh, yeah, good one. Bro, I'm still kind of recovering. How are you finding it?
Mostly good, but I'm very conscious of the old exertion stuff. So we did, as I said, we did that workout on Saturday morning, and it wasn't that I was sore, but I was just in the hole energetically. I like, the old like breathing out your bum, getting lightheaded type vibe, and it was kind of like, right, we should probably stop. Yeah, this isn't going so well. So yeah, I've been sort of advised to try and keep the heart rate under 120 for 2 months, which is a heck of a long time. But thankfully, I'm not training for anything, so I really should follow that advice. I started back on the old fish oil to keep the blood a bit thin. I'm going to get some supplements as well to keep them a bit thin. You don't want to be that stat, but it's probably unlikely, but you never know. Yeah. I think I'm all right. As we've heard here, the odd time I've had to clear the throat, it just comes on randomly.
Oh, bro, I got that too.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Yeah. I'm pretty good. I didn't get too bent around. My sleep has been a bit messed up, but yeah, don't know.
It is what it is.
Yeah,
eh?
it is what it is. I'm all right.
We're still battling on. That's all that matters.
Yeah,
eh?
there's you just got to peek at the news to see the bad news. Yeah. I'll take what I had every time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man, grateful for you coming on. That's one thing
Cheers,
I didn't
bro.
ask you. What are 3 things you're grateful for today? Let's finish off on that.
Oh, what did I say? Obviously, having the weekend I had, I was grateful for love, touch, and I think it was nourishment, because I do love a good morning nourishing routine, sunshine, exercise, and good food and coffee. So I think that was the 3 things I was grateful for today.
Too easy.
Touch,
Right.
love,
Ryan,
and nourishment.
thank you, brother. For the listeners, if you got some value from this, I can't wait to go back through 2.5 hours of editing. Gonna be fun. Pick out all the gems.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you enjoyed this episode, if you got some value, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Share it to all your friends and family. Go check out what Ryan's doing. Check out his podcast, and we'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers, guys.
Awesome.